Hey guys, you are watching your Monster Izuku fanfiction. How are you all? So in this video, we will see what if Deku became the Dawn of the Dragon King. Here is short summary. Powerless Deku crosses paths with Hikari, a rebellious girl with dangerous abilities. Their fates entwine, propelling Deku into an unforeseen destiny as the Dawn of the Dragon King. Together, they navigate a world where powers, dreams, and the line between heroism and villainy blur. But before we start, if you want more stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe and like this video. And if possible, share this video with your friends. Now let's start the story. During a tedious social studies class, a student contemplates dark thoughts to escape the monotony. Amidst the droning teacher and restless classmates, a faint, rhythmic sound captures attention. The discovery of a slow heartbeat raises questions, hinting at a mysterious twist in the mundane setting. I thought I was just hallucinating things from lack of stimulus. Then I remembered the teacher had reptile scales and slits for eyes. He must have been some sort of mutant, a cold-blooded one. I wasn't an expert on snakes and all, but I figured their heartbeats should have been slower in general. The teacher explained, and rarely took pauses to rest, but his heart beat as if he was taking a nap. I tuned him off for a moment. I focused in the sounds inside me. It was easy to find the one I sought, in spite of the blood flow in my veins or the subtle shifting of my working organs. Perhaps my heartbeat is too fast in comparison, I concluded, something nasty pouring on my worsening mood. Oh, whatever, it pisses me off all the same. Serpent Man looks right at home running off his mouth. I bet he just forgot we exist. It was irritating. I was wasting precious time in a useless class when I could have been doing something remotely useful anywhere else. It was even more irritating knowing that Serpent Man got paid for wasting my time. Freedom. A few were barely paying attention. Everyone else was off in his or her own little worlds. Shame on me, I was one of the first brave soldiers to fall in this war against insipid education. Nobody was making an effort anymore and I hated it the most, even though I wasn't one to complain. Now, the option to bail out of class was always on the table, but I've got to lead by example, I thought to myself in a flash of inspiration. If I don't put up with this crap, these bastards won't either. At least they're not lynching the teacher. That's a start. Responsibility was a bitch. Honestly, at my age, societal stereotypes dictated I wasn't supposed to be responsible. Alas, this was my bitch of a cross to bear. This could continue a dull class or turn into anarchy depending on how much of a good girl I was. That wouldn't have been a problem if I didn't have the same urge to cut loose. I wanted to cut loose. I blinked slowly and looked up until it was physically uncomfortable to do so. Freedom, heard the voice in my head yet again. It sounded dangerously similar to my own voice and nearly convinced me I consciously concocted that word. I did not. For every logical argument I put up not to trash the classroom, the voice spoke the word again, louder, firmer, refusing to offer anything except a simple concept and a simpler intention with it. Perhaps a simple concept worked as the antithesis against a dull, insignificant class. Freedom was there, dangled in front of my face by a spineless adult with feeble authority. Borrowed authority, the voice corrected indignantly, fuming at the idea it had been given to him in the first place. Authority was not given, authority was earned, authority was to be taken away, regained, from this weakling. It had to be done through force. Those unfit to rule had to be shown how dangerous their unrequited ambitions were for them. Freedom. And it would be mine. It was mine, rightly so, and I'd cement that ownership by sinking my teeth into the teacher's flesh. It would only take a second and I would bite his head off his body. Only then would he and others understand not to slight me, not to fuck with me, not to dare take his life for granted when I decided if he could keep it or not. I pinched a patch of skin off my hand. The pain brought me back to reality. I looked down. Blood quickly began pooling there where I injured myself. It couldn't trickle down quickly enough before the flesh beneath swallowed the liquid back like a sponge. Thin threads of steam emerged from the wound as a new layer of skin began forming to replace the one I took. 10 seconds passed. My hand looked the exact same as it had before I hurt it. I rolled the remaining piece of flesh around my fingers. With a quick flick and a wild spark, I charred the thing and threw it somewhere else. Led by example, just bear with it all, I insisted in my head moments later. It'll be over in a flash and then I can chill. I had to set that example. Not through force, not now. Freedom was mine already. Freedom was a precious benefit, too, and there wasn't a greater show of willpower than rejecting precious things that could be mine if I so wished. I had the gun. I didn't need to pull the trigger. Really though, who was I trying to fool? I was the only one with the class textbook open on my desk. The Hero System and the Rebranding of Crime was its name. Nothing to say about it, except that there was another book on business management sandwiched between its glossy pages. A smartass might have shed light on the irony. The role model wasn't any better than those she was trying to set straight. At least I pretended to pay attention. It was something, and it was huge compared to the huge nothingness my useless classmates were contributing with so eagerly. Switching one boring subject for a slightly less another wasn't doing me any favors, though. The restlessness was getting to me. Freedom. Sighing, I flicked my right hand towards me. My wristwatch told me in rather succinct terms to go fuck myself. 7 minutes had passed since I last checked, 35 remaining till class concluded. I smacked my hand against the desk. Another sigh came out, adorned with an ugly grumble like a croak. I glanced around, telling myself I wasn't the only idiot suffering through it all. It'd probably calm me down to know this was a collective pain in the ass and I wasn't just being a wuss. There at the rightmost corner of the classroom was Makoto. She was real sneaky reading manga hidden between her legs. The not-so-sneaky Kenji at the desk alongside was busy inhaling chips in front of the teacher only to unload a can of cola down his throat afterwards. Twitches began racing around my eyes as I heard his loud chewing deep in my ear. What a pig. I turned my head. Then there was, Miguel and Miwa had joined desks and were playing shogi. It was almost cute and a bit horrifying to see two violent dickheads bonding for a change and not at knife point. Was this how mums felt when the parasitical beings they called children turned over a new leaf? Miguel didn't know how to play shogi for shit, though. From my desk I could witness how Miwa dicked him at every opportunity. She looked calm and collected, but her quickening heartbeat was a telling detail of her sadism. She spared no insults or snarky comments either and opted to drink in the sight of her opponent losing his mind silently. She was a playful kitty cat toying with her food. Miguel nonetheless had enough brain cells to tell Miwa was taking advantage of his inexperience. At some point, his eyes went from the board to the girl in front. Something Miwa did then provoked him, perhaps. He pointed a finger at her and did a throat-slitting gesture. "Stop looking at me like that or I'll gut you like a fish, Huda," I heard Miguel say. Miwa slapped the table. She flipped him off too, laughing. "Try if you dare, faggot." The guy sucked in a sharp breath. He grabbed his chair as if threatening to get up. Then he saw me looking. Miguel immediately lifted a hand in an appeasing gesture and returned to his game, gulping. Miwa looked back for a second, saw me, and clenched her ass cheeks as hard as she could while mouthing, "Sorry." Their match continued a full minute of fidgeting later. On one hand, commanding instant respect was good. On the other hand, was my ugly mug so scary? I was feeling irritable and perhaps it showed too much. Whatever. My eyes darted somewhere else. I spotted good old Chiaki. She was all cozy and tucked in her oversized black-pink hoodie, legs kicked over her desk, leaning back on her chair. She was extremely concentrated on her phone. I squinted and focused on it. She seemed to be playing one of these, gacha. Yeah, a gacha game. One of these where you could pay real cash to get items and stuff like that inside the game. I squinted harder. This particular game was about, I guessed, magical girls fighting against demons, if I remembered correctly. I wasn't too sure. I recognized the skimpy outfits and the jiggling s well enough, but that was where the familiarity ended. I wasn't too big on video games. But I was incredibly interested in the business strategies behind gachas. These heavily relied on the players spending their money on a chance of getting the object they wanted, so the random nature of the prize was meant to encourage a constant flow of cash in hopes of getting the prize. Although not a necessary mechanic, It was a core characteristic of the gacha, the only way of getting the full gaming experience. Sure, one could play without spending a single yen, but they wouldn't have a taste of all the characters, the costumes, the items, and yada yada. Even if companies denied it, it was a literal form of gambling transformed to appeal younger and more numerous scores of people. Attractive on its own, addictive in depth. I guess I also liked the cute anime girls with the big tits. Credit where credit was due. Japan could be sunk by an asteroid as God intended it to, and I'd be a happy camper. The people here entertained me well enough to convince me not to sink the island myself, though. I leaned back. I felt strangely satisfied I managed to distract myself with something interesting for a while. I also felt my lips twitching upwards for the briefest instant. Then I checked my wristwatch and only 3 fucking minutes went by. Terrific. Freedom. I clenched my teeth and looked around some more. Oyuki at the front didn't even bother with anything anymore. She was snoozing off, sprawled like dead chicken, just a bad move away from sliding to the floor. Daeyong a few desks in front didn't waste the opportunity to ogle from afar, trying to see if he got a good view of Oyuki's underskirt. I caught him looking. He realized and gave me a sheepish smile. Seconds later, he was licking his lips and staring at Oyuki with more intensity. Dirty bastard. I was gonna slap his Korean testicles with the business end of my shoe later. I sniffed and leaned back on my chair. Okay, I was wrong. Looking for entertainment in my classmates was a stupid waste of time. I didn't even bother to check on the teacher again. He knew his class sucked ass and was pleased to fulfill his task as long as no one interrupted him. I empathized with him some. I would also give up if my students were unpredictable deviants, but still, screw him. I didn't come here early in the morning to get bored. At least I wanted to learn. He owed me that much considering he could deliver a lesson in the first place. We were supposed to discuss the socio-political effects of quirks when they manifested some 100 years and something ago. I remember a young foolish me excited at the idea of learning history. Now I just looked back at my past self and pitied her for showing a sliver of interest at all. My investment was officially extinguished, castrated, emasculated. All that was left was to suck it up and bear with the boredom. Freedom. With a sigh, I returned to my business management book. Just as I began to focus and read the first lines, I felt something tap against my head. It bounced on my temple, bounced on my desk and finally fell on the floor next to me. I pulled away from my read. As I craned my neck and stared down, I saw a paper ball rolling away from me. Charming. I clicked my tongue and went back to my book. 1, 2, 3 seconds passed and I felt another paper ball bounce on my head. Pissed, boss. I chewed on my lower lip without paying attention. My index and thumb took the page and turned it to the other. I hadn't even finished reading that. Another paper ball hit me. It was bigger this time. I stole a glance at my wristwatch. A counter for my heartbeat in real time flashed on its dark surface, appearing just beneath the numbers that marked the hour. 99 beats per minute and steadily rising. I shook my head a bit and tried to concentrate on the book. Piss off, I said. There was a short while of tranquility. After steadying my breathing, I turned the page to where I was before, and settled down in a comfortable posture. I nearly forgot I was bored as heck and irritated on top of it. My head budged an inch as I got hit yet again. Disrespect. I gritted my teeth. Then I looked down. There was a giant paper ball the size of my right tit on the ground. A growl crawled up my throat. I felt my knuckles tighten their hold on the book. Something that tasted like gunpowder rolled on my tongue. Suck my fat dick, Nitsuko, I growled to the worthless bitch alongside my desk. Throw me another one of those and I'll shove all that paper down your throat. She chuckled mischievously. Come on, boss, I've been trying to get your attention for a few minutes, she reasoned. This boredom's gonna suck the soul out of me like a thirsty hooker on her knees sucks her sugar papa. Can you chit-chat with your loyal subordinate a little bit? I rolled my eyes. With a groan, I turned my head. Nitsuko was an interesting dichotomy. She seemed like a charming young girl at first glance, with short blue marine hair and dark innocent eyes. Her tiny smile must have fooled many into thinking she was an upbeat teenager who couldn't possibly harbor bad intentions. If she decided to pursue an acting career, she'd go far. This creature was many things and none of them good. She was the kind of person that would hire the Yakuza to kidnap a classmate for the giggles or some freaky shit like that. She seemed capable, held back only by her own lack of resources and maybe, just maybe, a tiny and minuscule shred of morality floating around in the black hole where her heart used to be. Insolence. This blue midget got on my nerves. That ugly grin on her face was an eyesore too. Okay, why didn't you ask instead of throwing paper around like a mongoloid? It would only take a second and I'd respectfully tell you skedaddle back to the abyss you crawled out of. Nitsuko smiled again, because I wanted to start a conversation without getting rejected. Besides, boss, it's your fault class is so damn boring. At least take responsibility for your decisions. Without their bread and circus, the crowd gets angry. I scoffed. It's not my responsibility to keep you freaks of nature entertained. I ain't anybody's nanny. She huffed while shrugging her shoulders. There has to be a compromise somewhere along this rocky road, boss. Can't we, I don't know, decapitate this pathetic excuse of a teacher we have? It'd do wonders to our mood and nobody would miss him. Yes, go ahead and get it over with, I grumbled. Really? Yep, I confirmed. I'm afraid I'll have to split you in half when you're done with him, though. That doesn't sound like a fair trade. I want to live too. That's the beauty of freedom, ho. You can do whatever the hell you want, but don't feel too shocked when I snap your neck for disobeying me. Those are the rules and that's the only reason I haven't burned this school to the ground. It's more trouble than it's worth. I sniffed again and then shut both of my books closed. I laid them on my desk. For now, I added seconds later. I'd be lying if I said I ain't got a bitch of an itch to commit arson right now. Well, why not give in to your instincts? She cheerfully suggested with spread arms. Let the beast cut loose and embrace your true nature. Set alight the flames of hatred. Disrespect. I leaned back and put a foot on the desk. Do not tease me. Ah, boss, I wouldn't dare to, replied Nitsuko with a grin. But let's be frank. You of all people can't possibly enjoy this dull pantomime of a normal school we've created. Sometimes I miss when Mirai was top dog, with him it was always a festival. Upon hearing her commentary, I began to gather as much saliva as I could. Then, I leaned towards her and spat on her uncovered arm. She instantly recoiled in pain. The part of her skin where I sprayed her began to give off steam and a strong smell. Fuck, that burns, she cried out. Shit, hot, hot, hot. A few heads turned, including the teachers. I gave them all a look and they went back to their business. I was left with a writhing Nitsuko. Is that insubordination I sense? No, damn it, it was just a joke, she assured while carefully rubbing the spot where I hurt her. Fuck Mirai, he was a pretentious dick anyway. Nah, he was pretty cool, actually, I said and she groaned. The people he commanded were not, though. You animals can't settle down with a normal life, and you know what? I don't care either way. As long as you don't break the rules, it's no skin off my back. Nitsuko checked her injury and sighed dejectedly. This is definitely going to scar, she observed with a whine. Seriously boss, why do you need to be a total bitch out of nowhere? I left the question hanging in the air. I leaned back even more on my chair and put both hands behind my head. After some seconds, I turned to stare at her. I was bored. Seeing you twitch like a fucking worm on a frying pan was hilarious, I commented, making sure a smile did not creep onto my face. See, you can have fun without killing people, you psycho. Before Nitsuko had any time to follow up with another shitty commentary, I jabbed a finger in her direction. And, I interrupted, I told you not to call me, boss, during class. Huh. Now that's an unreasonable order, boss, said she with a nonchalant shrug of her shoulders, as if she hadn't been burned a moment ago. What's so wrong about singing your praises? My silver tongue is just about the only talent I have. I'm a defenseless girl who has to survive in a horrible world. Not all of us can brute force through our problems. That's why I wanna get on your good side so you can do it for me. You're doing such a good job at it, I replied dryly. Keep being a darling and I'll promote you to court buffoon sooner or later. Ah, Flattering position for one as lowly as me, truly. Neither of us said much for a couple of minutes. Nitsuko simply kept rubbing the nice little wound I gave her. After a short while, I put my feet on the ground and elbows on the desk. For real, though, don't call me boss unless we're talking business. If you didn't get the memo yet, I can open up your skull and burn it on your brain to make sure. The smug girl raised her hands in the air, as if giving up. Yes, Hikari. Forgive my insolence, I promise I'll never do it again. I hummed. Too sassy, but I'll take it. Another interval of silence settled in. The teacher was still droning on, purposefully oblivious to the indifference of the students he was supposed to educate. My eyes fell on my wristwatch once again. 15 minutes before the bell rang. Out of curiosity, I checked my heartbeat. It was a normal 74 beats per minute. I leaned back again and nearly felt like zoning out for the remainder of the class. I didn't. An idea came to my mind, and then I wanted to confirm something. Hey, I called Nitsuko. Yes, Chiaki's playing a game on her phone. A gacha game, you know. It's one of those where you pay for in-game items. I've played some myself, yes, she responded. What about it? I gestured at the transfixed Chiaki with my chin. Do you know which game she's playing? Nitsuko chuckled. I turned to look at her and saw her face had relaxed into a dopey grin. She held out a hand. She's right there. Just ask her, said Nitsuko with a mocking expression, and she seemed seconds away from adding, don't be stupid. Insolence. I'm asking you, Smurfette. Besides, Chiaki was concentrated and I didn't want to disturb her. She'd been a model student so far without bothering anyone too, so it was only right for me not to bother her when she didn't deserve it. Nitsuko rolled her eyes and leaned forward to get a better glimpse of Chiaki's phone. She squinted, trying to get a good glance as much as she was racking her mind for the memory she needed. It is, oh, I know. Her face brightened up with the realization. That one's called Dark Princess, Blade. It's an action RPG and it's also age-restricted. No shit, Sherlock. I almost didn't see the giant tits occupying 2/3 of the screen, I said. Family unfriendly content aside, you seem to be acquainted with that game. And then she complains I'm Captain Obvious, chuckled Nitsuko. I'm your superior. This ain't a democracy, so I can get away doing the things I'd spank you for. If you don't like it, well, throw yourself off the school roof and pray you'll be stronger in your next life. Maybe you can be alpha bitch too. Wait, you do believe in a next life? No. Heavens no, she instantly denied. Thank God I'm an atheist. I wouldn't get a wink of sleep at night knowing what awaits me after I kick the bucket otherwise. I have never apologized and never will. At least you admit you're a perfidious little rat. I wiggled a hand at her. Anyway, the game. Which company made it? Nitsuko snorted and smiled me a crooked smile. I'll remind you that Neat and Hikikomori to be is just a few desks in front of you. Anyway, if my memory doesn't fail me. It can't fail. It can't, of course, she responded. The developer is called something, Ryuzenji Entertainment Company. Its forte is RPGs and they've been gaining a lot of traction with a couple of big titles like Sky Castle and The Dawn of the Dragon King. It has recently expanded its business into the mobile game territory and its main clientele is Chiaki over there, who's a few taps away from draining whichever debit card she's using to get useless digital items. Chiaki turned her hooded head towards us at that moment. We turned to stare too. We could only see half of her face. There's a limited summer event going on right now and I'm not missing out on it, explained Chiaki. Money is temporal, but swimsuit costumes are forever. Having said that, she returned to the cash leakage simulator. Business is going well, as you can see, said Nitsuko while gesturing at Chiaki with her hands. Evidently. I grabbed a lock of half-black, half-red hair that strayed close to my face and rolled it around my finger. Ryuzenji Entertainment Company, do you know if this developer has like, a parent company or something like that? If I didn't know the answer I'd say you're stretching my knowledge thin. Nitsuko crossed her arms and pushed her lip with a thumb. As a matter of fact, it does. It belongs to the Kiryu Holdings conglomerate. Pretty big competitor in the technological and entertainment market, though it usually keeps to itself. It was founded and it is stationed in Japan, but some rumors say it has roots and connections in China. I pulled the lock of hair strongly as she finished explaining. I also felt myself pulling a face and not a particularly pretty one. I didn't turn to stare at Nitsuko. Now I know why the game seemed familiar, I thought. And now I'm in a bad mood again. Fuck my curiosity and fuck me. Have mine answers quenched thine thirst for knowledge? Said the blue midget, and I saw her bowing from the corner of my eye. She stood up and bowed. Actually. Yeah, groovy. She cheered while sitting her ass back on her chair. Would you be so kind as to answer me 1 or 2 questions now? I mean, seeing as you just used me as your human encyclopedia, it'd only be right. Did you just say groovy? I questioned while raising both eyebrows at her. I mean, yeah, ask away. What is it? Why the sudden interest in gaming and corporate affiliations? Asked she while posing her cheek on her open palm. Please don't tell me you're planning on developing an RPG game yourself. Or worse, playing one. Not that I'd mind, but we already have a digital junkie and she's as productive as a solar panel at midnight. Ditto, said Chiaki while raising her arm and a finger, without turning her back. Yes, and having our boss get hooked to that technological drug would set a bad example. I tisk ed. First off, I already said I do whatever I want. Secondly, no, I won't play games anytime soon, but that's because I'm doing important stuff unlike you losers. And finally, how is sitting your ass down and playing a harmless game setting a bad example, huh? That's what high schoolers do and you'd benefit a freaking lot from behaving normally. Do you get off watching teenagers eyes each other instead or what? Immensely so, responded Nitsuko while showing her tongue. Okay, I fell into that one, I grunted. My point stands, though. You surely don't get to judge anyone when you need a body count to rate your hobbies as good or not. What can I say? The more the merrier. It gets boring to play with myself after a while. That commentary got another groan out of me. She simply smiled. My question still needs answering, Hikari, she reminded me. Why the sudden interest in corporations and shit? Well, I nearly trailed off for far too long. Nitsuko was a sucker for secrets and I wasn't gonna give her any clue I had them. I quickly grabbed my book on business management and waved it at her. I'm basically running a business, ain't I? I got interested in big corporations and vertical business relations. It may just help me down the road. The games are secondary. There, it was the truth, just not the whole of it. That's like the Hikari I know. Always seeking opportunities and aiming higher. It's so adorable that you want to learn from your betters in this capitalist jungle called Japan, sweetheart. Insolence. I tensed up and nearly barked a reprimand. I waited for a few seconds instead, took a mouthful of air, and spoke only when I felt calmer. Call me sweetheart ever again and I'll rip your goddamn heart out. Okie-do, immediately agreed Nitsuko. I'll cross that one out from my irritating names checklist. Seriously though, are you that confident you'll make it big once out of Deroku? I don't think I could even run a bakery store without setting it on fire first. A roll of eyes and a huff later, I responded. Gotta be confident. It's either swim or sink and I'd rather pilot a big-ass yacht, but I gotta make money to buy it first. I dunno, mommy and daddy ain't gonna bother much with me after I escape this hellhole. What about you? Don't hit me below the belt like that. My parents love me and I'm not about to deny their gracious assistance, financially speaking. Is it wrong to support your child even if she's a bit eccentric? I almost choked laughing after she said that. I slapped a hand over my mouth and took another calming breath. Eccentric. Sorry, is that rich people talk to say, out of my fucking mind? Whichever definition is fine. It's not as if I can fight you about it. Anyway, opinions don't kill. As long as you don't speak them out loud, yeah. I glanced at my wristwatch again. 3 minutes and class would end. Satisfied after fooling around for a bit, I extended my arms above my head and stretched my back along with them. The joints firmly clicked into place the moment I relaxed. My back felt like a spring snapping back into itself after being strained to the limit. There was something moving, shifting, just there within my vertebrae. It felt tingly. Just then, I spared Nitsuko a look. She was not looking at me. I leaned and twisted my body until I was inches away from the floor. I did so slowly, silently. As soon as I could, I grabbed the last paper ball she threw at me, the giant one. Punishment. I returned to my seat. Nursing my newly acquired paper ball between my hands, I spoke. "Hey, bitch." I heard Nitsuko shifting. Half a second later, without looking, I wound up my arm behind me and returned the gremlin's favor with a vengeance. The ensuing smack was loud. Very loud. It sounded like someone got slapped on the wrist with a ruler. Nitsuko couldn't even form a word as she received a big fucking mouthful of paper right on the nose. The impact threw her off balance and she fell off her chair. Everyone stopped. My classmates turned to look at what happened and even the teacher pulled away from his one-sided lecture. I couldn't see Nitsuko's face. Her legs were dangling from the edge of her upturned chair. A few seconds passed and I saw a raised hand. Ahem. What was that for? I dedicated her a smile I intended to make as smug as possible, even if she couldn't see it. I only said, "Bitch." The one to turn first was the one who would get it. "It's not my fault you identify as one," I explained. "How's that for bread and circus, bitch?" I first heard a gasp after responding. Then I heard a wheeze. A girly, joyous laughter followed and I could see Nitsuko's chair shaking from the movement. Everyone else joined in with wilder laughter. Some even made more paper balls and threw them at the Nitsuko, who only laughed harder at the assault, if anything. The teacher ignored us and packed his belongings as quickly as possible in another display of spinelessness. The bell rang 1 minute of laughing later. Class finished and we eagerly exited the room, smiling to each other like devils. I detested school. I detested my classes even more. My schoolmates, well, if revoking people's right to live wouldn't land me in jail, I'd get rid of many of them in a heartbeat. Few things convinced me to attend altogether and I would have been happier literally anywhere else. Marching through the school hallways reinforced my opinion even further. The bad graffiti and dick drawings scribbled across the walls weren't easy on the eyes. Few windows weren't shattered out of their frames and those remaining in one precarious piece had dirty colors stained across their entire surface. Trash and liquids were strategically placed on the floor to trip any idiot blind enough to step on them. Irritating. "I'm pretty sure I ordered to keep this joint tidy," I grumbled to Nitsuko walking along me. The rest of my classmates followed closely behind. "That you did, boss. We hired a couple of enthusiastic guys from Class C and put them on cleaning duty. They're quite hard working for the right price." "Oh, yes, bloody hard work they was doin'," I said while waving a hand at the disastrous sight sprawling before me. "They worked hard to create a new biological weapon. There's a whole ass ecosystem on the floor. Hell, if you give the walls a lick you'll probably get a new quirk." "How's a new power sound?" Nitsuko laughed. "I can vouch for their outstanding service," she assured. "No, this charming representation of entropy is work of our rowdy juniors. Disrespect. Their mommies ain't teach 'em to clean their rooms or something. Apparently," continued Nitsuko, "they also seem to think that being in the rear end of society enables them to act like rear ends themselves. I figured they didn't mind living amongst garbage and filth, which is why I told our private janitors to stand by for the time being. We can't afford to waste money if the place will just get dirty yet again." "Makes sense, but this is unacceptable," I said. "I want this place squeaky clean. See to it and make sure those morons appreciate it." "Righto. Appreciate is a bit of a strong word, though. I have the inkling our juniors aren't thoughtful like that. They surely didn't wreck the hallway to create job opportunities for the people on cleaning duty, no matter how much those appreciate the extra cash." I hummed. "So the peaceful, civil solution is out of the question." Nitsuko nodded in response. "You and I know it has never been a feasible option. I propose we fuck 'em up, in less glamorous terms," she explained. "They're impressionable kids and an impression of a fist on their faces is sure to last. Any more tolerance than that and they'll think we're asking for it in a roundabout sort of way. Ignorance. They be the ones askin' for it. A fist down their throat, that is. Nasty motherfuckers. Sounds like you're a chef in need of some spice. How do you want to do it?" "The what? I'm asking how you want to traumatize them," clarified Nitsuko. "Do we settle with an old-fashioned beating or are we feeling sadistic?" We could cut them up and douse them in salt. If you want to humor me in my metaphors of cuisine and gore, we could just put them inside a bowl with hot water and let them stew for a few hours. I'm also partial to the introduction of long, ferrous objects inside the anal cavity. I call that one, spit roasting. Careful or y'all make it sound weird, I mumbled. Make that sodomization with a burning rod and maybe I'll consider it. PFF'd. See careful or you'll make it, no. I said nothing, she instantly assured the moment I gave her a look. Anyway, time is money, we should charge them for wasting ours. The question is when. Don't say, we, I just told you to deal with it, stupid. She smiled me a Cheshire cat smile. Well, I'm sorry boss, it's just that rumors can only keep the riffraff at bay for so long before you need to justify them. I figured punishment would be effective if you applied it, explained Nitsuko with a funny tone. Why? I also noticed too much beating around this bush. Don't tell me you're getting cold feet with a bunch of troublesome babies. Insolence. I pinched the bridge of my nose with 2 fingers. Weariness washed over me in the same second and I felt my face twisting into an expression I didn't want to show. I let my hand linger and hid myself behind it. I'm real busy and this shit is so below me it spears right through the earth's crust, I explained. Get someone else to take them down a notch, 'fore they do something even nastier. I ain't got no time to babysit. Nitsuko dedicated me a mockery of a military salute. Then she turned her head towards our classmates. Yamada, Daisuke, you heard the boss. Go find our juniors and gently smack the retarded out of them. The ones you should search for are led by a guy named Hayate, so ask for him. Chop chop now. They answered with a dutiful, yes ma'am, and broke away from our group. As soon as I heard them turn around a corner, I uncovered my face and looked at Nitsuko. It sounds as if you saw this Hayate dude and his following of imbeciles in person, I commented. Why ain't you stop him in the act? The blue midget put a hand on her chest. She gasped, apparently flabbergasted. Who, me? What is a fragile little girl like me to do against the byproducts of radioactive tequila and broken condoms? Said Nitsuko. Should I have talked them to death? They'd probably laugh at me and then beat me, in the best of cases. Now, if you just let me use my quirk, I could do them a real wrong. Nah, right. Don't even think about it. So there you have it, Nitsuko said with a sigh, dropping her theatrical tone while keeping her smile. It does beg the question. Why send only 2 people, Daisuke and Yamada at that? They're tough but they ain't the toughest, I reasoned. Miguel and Kenji are better for the job. Miguel and Kenji are also valuable assets by virtue of their quirks, responded Nitsuko without missing a beat. We can't just send them to every juvenile, malnourished lion that gets thrown into this zoo. At least not without some info. After going over the matter a few times in my head, I concluded Nitsuko had the right idea. I gave her a nod and said nothing else of the matter. As we kept walking, I noticed 2 smells. The first, a pungent, putrid scent that was sure to come from the toilets nearby. They probably were in dire need of cleaning too. I grimaced but my classmates didn't even react. The second smell hit me like a freight train seconds later. A musky, earthy kind of smell. Smells like cancer. Red flashed across my vision for a moment. A growl crawled up my throat seconds later and I couldn't keep it down. My classmates following me noticed the growl and smell, and were quicker to detect the latter's source. Heya, Miss Despot Bitch, called out a lazy, carefree voice. I looked down and growled all the way, until my eyes found the offender. It was a student from another class. He was squatting down in a lone corner of the hallway. His hair was disheveled, greasy, and so was his black uniform on which I could spot shiny stains of something. The soiled clothes didn't catch my attention as much as his shiny ear piercing did, though. Could I rip the skin off his skull if I pulled that piercing with the right grip? I couldn't help imagining. Distantly, I felt my fingers twitch. They were readying themselves to go for the envisioned kill the nanosecond I slipped, the bloodthirsty bastards. I still managed to conjure patience when there was none and delay the tragedy. Barely. I wouldn't have minded to get red-handed. I felt someone push past me. My mind was quick to call insolence even as I registered it was just Nitsuko shielding me from the other student. I stared at the back of her head. When did she dye her blue hair a crimson color? Lovely mouth you've got there, Kotoji-san, I heard Nitsuko say. A good wash with soap would make it even lovelier, though I figure you first need a good brushing of teeth. Ah, my apologies, I don't believe you're acquainted with the concept of brush in general. Ha, if it ain't the bitch's bitch. Come closer and say that again, I ain't hear nothin' of what ya just said. Is your leash too short? Nitsuko shook her head, she pinched her nose and grimaced. No way, dogs are rather sensitive to smells, you see, and at this distance I'm surprised you haven't put me in a coma with yours, she rebutted. Actually, I'm inclined to believe you also suffer from a grave case of ablutophobia. Fuck's that, German or some shit, Nitsuko recoiled while making a disgusted, exaggerated noise. Not at all, it's just the scientific term for, go take a shower, you disgusting twat. Said twat laughed heartily before stuffing his cigarette back into his mouth. He took some deep, rough puffs before exhaling and further contaminating the place with gaseous nicotine. Smells like cancer. Cancer kills, so it's fine if you kill him. The twitchy fingers transformed into clenched fists. When patience didn't cut it, I settled with sheer willpower, itching to express the building aggression in any way. I trusted in Nitsuko's ability to defuse the situation. Or so I like to believe, but the image of a burning rod came up in my head, and I began reconsidering the idea of torture. Any bitch can bark mad shit while her owner's sticking up for her, can't she? He shot back. A sad fucking sight, Yagami. A while ago you took no shit from nobody and now are eating from that uppity whore's palm. Turns out ya ain't scary like the rumors said. Kotoji pointed his cigarette at me as he spat his opinion of Nitsuko. The gremlin herself didn't seem particularly shaken, even if his analysis of her hit right on the money. Let me share a bit of insight with you, Kotoji-san. It's possible to tell bravery apart from stupidity by a lack of judgment. Seeing as you enjoy running off your mouth, confusing my allegiance with weakness, well, I'd say you're a very poor judge of character. Blah blah and more blah. Kotoji took another stuff and snickered. Talk pretty all you like, ya blue gnome. The truth is the truth no matter if I say it or if Jesus fucking Christ says it. And the truth is that a little bitch, and so is that massive cunt you call boss, behind ya. Nitsuko turned her head, she gave me a funny look with her dark eyes. Stupidity it is. Then she looked behind me. What say you, my brethren? I heard steps behind me. Miguel and Miwa appeared alongside me in a matter of seconds. I say we lynch him. Boss, please lemme have at him, asked Miguel while cracking his knuckles. This Marika likes talking shit and this ain't the first time he's acted tough. One punch to the throat and he ain't talking none more. I'm with Mike on this one, continued Miwa. I have a bone to pick with Ugly and Smelly over here. Ah, come on, Miwa-chan. You still won't let that one go. It was a joke, okay. A lil, harmless joke. I ain't hurt nobody. You followed me into the washroom, bastard. And who says I followed you specifically? Questioned Kotoji. It's nice and all you have a good opinion of your ass, but you ain't all that much to me. Though if you get down on all fours and beg, I can probably pretend I'm the only one in this school who wants to plow ya. That's a big probably, though. Why you? Miwa stomped her foot as she made to approach Kotoji. Miguel tensed up and Nitsuko took a step aside to let Miwa pass, gesturing at the slanderer behind while saying, all yours. Time stopped and so did everyone. For a moment, there was the sound of rushing blood in my ear and nothing else. It was hard to see through so much red, and I just couldn't blink the scarlet slobber away. But just as I was about to surrender my consciousness and fate to the anger, I forced myself to inhale. Normal color returned. The thunderous heartbeat besides me slowly sank into the backdrop. Reality came crashing and I crashed against it in turn. It was physically painful as much as it was necessary to drop down from that raging high. When I did, I took in another sharp breath, supplying my brain with a much-needed dose of oxygen and clarity. I took another quickly, nervous that the receding anger could come back with a vengeance if I relaxed too soon. Only then did I realize I'd stopped Miwa on her tracks by putting a hand on her shoulder. The imminent bout didn't come to be. She was looking back at me, angry, confused, and there was crisp fear flashing across her expression too, so crisp I could nearly taste it. Conquer. No, 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 no. Miwa was not an enemy. She was not, even though she was playing with fire, taunting me with all those lovely signs of weakness, so close I could smell the cold sweat on her cheek, so close I could hear the speeding ba-dum in her chest. My mouth began watering and the course of action became clear in my mind. I had to bite off her face. Then I'd rip out her heart and crush it. Here, she'd be another example, a bleeding monument to my authority, and people would think twice before provoking me. Calm down. A moment that felt like an eternity came and went. Then came the realization that it was me talking, ordering Miwa as much as I was ordering myself to get my shit together. But boss, this guy, he just said, challenge. I gritted my teeth. Miwa's voice grated on my ears, a noise of opposition inciting the darker parts of my brain. I know what he said, idiot, I replied, and it took humongous effort to keep my voice level. Calm the hell down. Her expression softened. Now there wasn't fear, not really. Submission, perhaps, and a bit of respect sprinkled with understanding. Boss, he's nothing. Don't give him the pleasure of being something to ya. You might as well write him a love letter if gonna punch him. Miwa clenched her fists, looking back and forth with indecision. She finally backed off after a bit of internal debate. She spat on the ground next to Kotoji and walked away. The others did the same and waited for my instructions. Nitsuko crossed her arms, unsmiling, and Kotoji whistled an irritating noise. Wow, violent and sassy as they are, ya really trained puppies to sit on command. Neat trick. Can they give a paw too? Don't push it, I said without looking at him. The hallway is disastrous as it is to spill greasy blood all over it. Kotoji giggled that abominable noise again. Gosh, this was hard. Careful there. Keep layin' onto me and I'll begin thinking ya care about me. I huffed and walked past him. It'd be the first time someone gives a damn about you. That said, go take a shower, you smelly cunt. I could literally sniff you from another hallway. He laughed yet again. Roger that, Miss Despot bitch. Oh, wait, are we still in a dictatorship or did we shift into a monarchy? Should I have to address her ass as Queen bitch the sluttiest, then? Ha 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 ha. Everyone else walked past that pitiful specimen of a human being. They couldn't really ignore him. From the corner of my eye, I saw most of them shoot Kotoji a glare that could have burned a hole into him. Thank God, nobody had heat vision or the guys on cleaning duty would have a field day. The rest of the walk continued in absolute silence. The dirty jokes and childish insults were conspicuous in their absence. My guys didn't skip on the chance to talk smack whenever they could. Thankfully, the footsteps helped me distract myself from the erratic heartbeats behind me. We finally turned up at the only clean hallway I'd seen in the entire morning. We walked some more and stopped in front of one classroom. Then I turned to look at my classmates. They wore irritated expressions on their faces. Some were slumping, cursing under their breath. Most tensed up under my gaze, waiting for me to speak. And speak I did. Fuck y'all looking so gloomy for. I didn't even need to scream to get their attention. They stood taller, all of a sudden, setting numerous twitching eyes on me. There was frustration in there. Impatience. Hunger. A few people stole one too many glances behind them. Whenever they stared back at me, I could see the feelings intensify even more. Weak. This feel like a goddamn funeral procession. And why? Because of a shit-talking, ass-smelling, smoking chunk of human-shaped dick cheese. I continued. Then I pointed a finger from where we came. Raise hands all those who wanna go back to search for their balls because someone must have dropped them on the way. I see many of you looking back. I see y'all. Be my guest if you lost something, but don't bother coming back. There were chuckles. There were knowing smiles too. The straying eyes strayed no more once I said my piece. Once I checked everyone's eyes were unanimously on me, I put a hand on the door of the classroom besides me. Nobody. Everybody's checked their cock didn't fall off. I asked with a raised eyebrow. The response came in the form of more chuckles and, no moms. Good. I ain't wanna be seen walkin' along fucking eunuchs. Animals, ain't ya? Predators. A predator don't get his panties in a bunch for no prey. At the mention of animals, someone unleashed an actual howl from within the crowd. I think it was Oyuki. Everyone else joined in with a howl of their own and the hallway soon turned into a freaking concert. I had to resist slapping a hand onto my face, but if it got their rocks off, I couldn't really complain. I slid the door open for them. Yeah, you're all big, bad, scary wolves. Now get inside before you scare someone to death. The howling stopped for a moment, somewhat. Kenji then came up to me. Boss, I can hold the door for you. You don't have to wait outside. I shook my head. No, save it, I ordered while gesturing towards the classroom with my eyes. Come on, all of you. Get inside before I leash you like actual dogs and drag you myself. I don't have all day. There was a moment of indecision, but they got the message. Any further protest died down in the ensuing cacophony of howls. My classmates squeezed themselves through the door gap in a dance of pushes and shoves. I heard even louder howls coming from the classroom where there were even more people waiting, itching to join in the fun. That's it. Nice and easy. Don't bite each other too much. I'd say, ladies first, but there ain't no fragile lil lady mixed up in there with ya, is it? I commented and stole a few more laughs out of the roaring horde. Move along now, except you. Just then, I grabbed Miguel by his uniform before he got swept in by the rushing students. I quickly dragged him away from view, just a few steps away from the door. He stared at me, heart beating wildly against his broad chest still. I took my hand off him before my heartbeat mimicked his own. Sorry, Mike, I needed your ears and no one else's. Miguel shook his head. Don't even worry about it, ma'am. What's up? I looked around to make sure nobody was listening. Once I checked, I gestured for him to get closer. He did, and then I whispered. Quiero que vuelvas y le cuibras los brazos al petito ese. Dale sin piedad. Hace que cant como un pajarito. Miguel had a blank look for a few moments. It didn't take long to transform into a wide smile with sharp fangs on display. Con todo gusto, patrona. It took some effort not to smile back at him. At least one of us had to have a head on their shoulders, and Miguel was the muscle already. This is not fun. This is to set an example, I thought to myself. Even then, I couldn't pretend I'd have liked to kill that bitch myself. I grabbed his uniform again as he turned to leave. I also need you to take two things. Intoned Miguel. Which, ma'am? Take a picture when you're done, first of all, I clarified. And take off his pants too. Bring them both, of course. Miguel let out a beastly giggle. He gave me thumbs up. Attaboy. I gave him a friendly slap on the butt and then he strutted back where we came from, rolling his shoulders all the while. I just waited there. I waited until he turned around the corner. Once he did, I waited some more, and then let out the sigh that had been building up since we stumbled upon Kotoji. My wristwatch beeped. I raised it enough so that I could see it. 187 beats per minute. I wasn't so focused on the ominous numbers as much as I was on the steadily bulging veins beneath my skin. A few spots of my wrist were changing colors, slowly shifting between reds and grays. Softy. I immediately slapped myself over the head. Shut up, I mumbled. You ain't helping. Something troubling you, boss. I tensed up and looked at the voice calling me all of a sudden. Nitsuko was there, coolly leaning against a wall with arms crossed. She had her trademark smile on her face. She stared with those beady dark eyes of her, and if I didn't know better, I could have sworn she was making fun of me in some way. Insolence. I ain't troubled. I usually just get rid of the stuff that piss me off, I explained. Right now pissin' me off a little. Okay, how do I not piss you off? I let her question hang for a bit. I took a couple of seconds to breathe and put a hand on my hip. I told you not to use your quirk, I said. I was having a private conversation with Mikey. You spy on us. Even if he couldn't see her stupid ass face, I would have noticed eventually. If you dared use it on me, all. Kill her, 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 kill her. I began moving towards her. I took 2 steps and Nitsuko lazily pointed at the classroom with her thumb. I just hid behind the door, boss. Nothing more. That was enough to stop me. That's so. I swear on my name, replied she with a hand on her chest and a raised palm. That don't mean nothin'. It's just about the one thing I haven't lied about, insisted Nitsuko as she showed me her tongue. There are many ways to eavesdrop and most don't require superpowers. I was simply listening behind a cover. I raised an eyebrow. She probably sensed my doubt and sighed. It's true, you would have noticed if there was something sketchy at work. You didn't notice because there was nothing to notice. That's enough proof, I'd say. I stared at her for a good number of seconds. She stared back with a suspiciously curvy smile, hands now behind her back. I sighed a longer sigh and put a hand on my neck. Well, I don't really give a shit if you snoop around. It's your job, I conceded. Careful with timin', though. I may just kill you if you give me a wrong impression and I'm on edge. Ah, are you worried about me? I'm worried about you as much as a chess player is worried about the queen. I could do without you, but I'd prefer to keep you around. I'll take it as a yes, she replied with a sing-song voice. Nitsuko and I finally stepped into the classroom. Any upstanding government official would have fainted upon entering this school of hell. The students had no care for the state of the building. They were also quick to show this disregard by fucking up every spotless inch of anything they could find until it reflected their wrath back at them. The thoroughly ravaged hallways were proof of this. Most classrooms were even worse, but we could not do much about it. We didn't care about those either. If I hadn't given the order, the entire place would have just been an overpopulated junkyard. To be honest, I wouldn't have cared, not really. However, if these anencephalic chimpanzees were to be locked in here with me, they'd follow my goddamn rules and tidy up the ground I walked. This classroom and the hallway just outside were my territory. My orderly, clean havens. They weren't comfortable nor pretty, and they were sure as hell not peaceful. Fuck no, they weren't. However, they were clean. There weren't unnecessary spots of filth to ignite violent genocidal urges within me. A tiny satisfaction after so many disappointments. The windows had a clear view of the sunny outside instead of the usual muddled nothingness. My guys had scrubbed and mopped the floor real good, so much I could even see the red colors of my uniform and hair when I looked down. And the walls, thank God, Buddha, and Allah for walls that were in one consistent piece. I still remember those 2 classrooms that turned into one because the wall separating them got fucking smashed down. A few dozens of students were coming and going inside the classroom. Many had arranged desks and chairs into one big table and were betting actual money on card games, poker or blackjack, I guessed. Drinks and snacks were strewn around where they didn't bother, along unopened packs of cigarettes. A couple others were sleeping, using desks as makeshift beds. Some were playing phone games, reading manga or simply chatting about trivial topics. They were having a good time, sporting smiley faces when not so long ago our abominable education system threatened to slurp the soul out of them. Most were students from my class, but quite a few weren't. All were my employees all the same. They were so entertained they didn't notice I was standing there. Nitsuko took note of this and stepped forward. She spared me a look. I nodded, crossed my arms, and looked away. She cleared her throat, standing firm with one arm behind her back. "Listen up, boys and girls," shouted Nitsuko. "The boss is here. Get off your asses and show her a modicum of respect." The students immediately heeded Nitsuko's call. They stopped whatever they were doing, actually stood at attention, and then bowed their heads after a couple of seconds. "Good afternoon, boss," they said in unison. The students stared at me after their greeting. I waited, scanning everyone's steadfast expressions as they set their eyes on me. I finally dismissed them with a lazy gesture of the hand. "Good afternoon. Sit down, y'all. Go back to your business." "Thank you, boss," and they sat down. I began walking. A few students were still looking at me, putting on their best faces with wide smiles. "Heya, boss. How's it hangin'? Welcome, boss. Hope you had a good day." "Lookin' good as always, boss. It's nice to see you." Good afternoon, boss. We were waiting for you. Sup? I simply said. I didn't spare anybody a second glance. I felt eyes on me. I saw wild movement from the corner of my eye, heard my minions whispering angrily between each other. When I was halfway into the classroom, the movement continued behind me, and soon enough, Miwa and Kenji appeared besides me. Boss, let me pick up your bag. Your shoulders must be tired, offered the well-spoken Kenji. I'll put it somewhere safe. I hummed and gave him my school bag without thinking twice. Just before he could do his task, I took out the book I was reading. Then I shooed him away. My gaze followed him around the room as he gently placed my belongings on some sort of chair far away from everyone else. Miwa was the next to speak. Are you hungry, boss? We bought a ton of food. Is there anything in particular you'd want? After thinking about it for a second, I responded. Give me something sweet to drink. No snacks, though. Ain't hungry yet. Roger, chimed the girl. Also, no smokin'. I saw the packs on the table, so I hope none of you forget about it. I'll get mad if I catch a whiff of tobacco on my uniform. Miwa shook her head. It's okay, boss. That ain't fair smoking here. The guys are just betting. Just silly games. I hummed and waved her away. I walked onwards, setting my sights on the teacher's desk, had it been there. Hey, where's the teacher's desk? I always use it, I said to no one in particular. Actually, what the hell is that? There was no teacher's desk. Chairs and tables had been piled up at the very front of the classroom where it should have been. They were stacked one over another, positioned in the form of a seat. A big seat. There was a dark red mantle spread over the center of that seat, along with some pillows. Ah, boss, that one's a present, informed Oyuki from a lone corner with her casual, sleepy tone. We thought the school chairs were too uncomfortable, so we decided to build that for you. Don't it look like a throne? It's almost like you're royalty, ha ha ha. Royalty. I guess I'd just be missin' the crown. I settled for a dull response. I could have pointed out the twisted irony in the very existence of this throne, minutes after I'd been called queen bitch. Why bother, though? C'est la vie, or some shit to that effect. I was an utter bitch. I had also considered the application of enlightened despotism for some time. The universe was probably telling me something. Oh well, Icarus bit the dust because he flew too close to the sun. I could probably soar a bit lower than him, enjoy the dream without breaking my neck on landing. I went up the discount throne and sat on it. I shifted on it, and my back sank into the soft surface well enough. It was surprisingly comfortable. One wouldn't normally expect the animals to construct anything this remotely stable or useful, but I was kind of liking it already. I crossed one leg over the other. Then, I whipped out my book in front of me. It was paperback. The title, The Essentials of Business Management, was etched in fancy golden letters on the cover. Just beneath, there was a cute little caricature of a man and a woman in formal black suits, talking with each other about business, I supposed. They surely weren't talking about pandas or French fries for all I knew. I stuck my thumb inside and flicked the thing open right where I left it. The page was barely legible, full of annotations and underlines in blue ink over the original text, courtesy of moi. My eyes scanned the parody of Egyptian hieroglyphics, seeking a particular bit of information amongst the scribbles. I stabbed the paper with my index the moment I found it. A heading peeked timidly beneath my rough nail. Useful tip number 5. Always remember to schedule free time. I let my finger slide down the page. I focused on those parts of the text I'd highlighted with pen. Never forget to kick back and relax every now and then. Running a business isn't just about slaving yourself or your employees away. It's important to work hard and responsibly as much as it is to know when to stop. Constant labor can only bring so many good results before it wears the personnel down, negatively affecting the output of the company. Productivity, morale and motivation can be kept at an all-time high with a tidy timetable, giving the employees the clear expectation of a well-deserved break after busy hours of work. My finger moved to the side of the page. There was a little annotation of mine, just besides the paragraph. The students under my command always call me boss at school. Should we be on a first-name basis when we're not enforcing order? It may reduce stress if they can let their hair down around me, separate work from school life. Consider and test. I clicked my tongue. I shoved a hand inside my skirt pocket, thank God for skirt pockets, and produced a pen. I poised it just beneath my annotation where there still was a bit of free space to write. And write I did. Failure. The animals can't calm down when I'm around. They're too scared of me to act casually. They're also on edge all the time. They're easily provoked by others and quick to anger. School is not a place to rest. Why must you torture yourself, boss? We just escaped from class and textbooks, and here you are martyrizing yourself with yet another insipid read. Insolence. I lifted my head and saw Nitsuko approaching the throne with a smile. I scoffed. I ain't feel like reading in class. I feel like reading now, I explained, disinterested. Nobody can tell me when I oughta do this or that. Things would be simpler that way. They'd be boring, too. The daily struggle against the world makes the moments of conquest sweeter. It ain't sweet when you've got cock measuring competitions every single day with every single acne-riddled dweeb and his cat. I sighed. It's like tellin' a brain-dead moron the sky's blue and he just don't get it because, obviously, he's brain-dead and a moron. But he'll insist anyway and you've got this urge to punch the moron out of him. Having said that, I leaned back and twirled my pen around my fingers. Some strands of hair strayed close to my face and I blew them away. I mean, just think of, I dunno, All Might. Old man's strong, he's crazy strong, but you've got these pathetic, small-time fools running around, robbing banks or some shit cause they think they're hotshots. And then, bam, there comes a smiling, blonde metric ton of muscle and beats their ass within an inch of their life, and they're like, oh, why did this happen to me? Oh, how could have been beaten so easily? Well, it's cause a brain-dead moron tryin' his rotten luck against a monster. But you ain't get it and that's why in jail now. I shut my book and dumped it on my thighs. And they really ain't get it. Well, those are petty criminals, they ain't villains. The real villains, the tough ones, they don't advertise themselves like that. They bid their time, they wait for the right moment. Then, they strike hard and fast, and vanish. You don't have many options when the strongest hero can just get in your face in a fraction of a second. Oi, y'all listenin'? Every single word, boss, responded Nitsuko with a chuckle. It's not every day I get you to chat with me and I didn't want to interrupt. Well, now that's so damn sweet of, wait a sec. I shifted in my seat and leaned forward. I stared down and saw Nitsuko just sitting there on a lower section of my throne, looking comfy and relaxed on the red mantle spilling over the desks beneath. Disrespect. The hell are doin' down there, dwarf? I questioned Nitsuko. This is my throne. Get off right now. Ah, that's so mean, fairest and most ruthless queen. You won't even grace this lowborn with a place beneath your feet and the view of your underskirt. Whined she before covering her lips with a hand, a mischievous look on her eyes. And on that note, boxers again, boss. Really? Insolence. I groaned and looked away, pulling my skirt a bit lower. Yeah bitch. Boxers again. We got a problem. Nitsuko shook her head. She laughed sadly, as if she had given up on something. Boss, you're a lady, a really beautiful one. We already discussed this. The boss bitch knows how to dress for the occasion on top of kicking ass. Would it kill you to wear something befitting of your? I fear the day you and the person you love sleep together and you look like you're about to run a marathon. Women's underwear is expensive. I'll end up broke if I get finicky with the things I wear, especially at the rate I incinerate my clothes. Anyhow, that ain't the point. I told you to get off. The blue gnome squirmed on her spot and pouted. Nitsuko stared at me with inflated cheeks and crossed arms. HMPH. Here I am looking out for you in your public image and this is how you repay me. Boss, I'm hurt, terribly so. My feelings have been dealt a death blow. Annoying. I don't give two shits about your feelings, dude, I replied with a groan. Whatever, I don't care no more. If gonna stick to me like bubblegum then let's talk money. I want to make a quick review of our budget. Her face immediately changed and she was excited again. She whipped out her cell phone and climbed up until she was around the same height as me. Right then Miwa appeared at the bottom of the throne and threw me the drink I asked for. "So, how's the cash cow?" I asked Nitsuko as I caught the drink midair. "She ain't complaining too much, is she?" Nitsuko didn't reply immediately. She hummed as her fingers dashed across the screen of her cell phone. After a couple of seconds of intense search, she finally found a document in particular and opened it. There were notes I couldn't make out too clearly in it. Most of the teachers agreed to pay for protection and uninterrupted classes. They were less reticent to accept now that they know our methods work. "We'll have steady funding, so we're looking at a good beginning this year." "Niece, who are the poor fools that didn't accept the deal, though?" I asked. "I fear they may get 1 or 2 reality checks in the following days. Life's a bitch like that." "They are, Mr. Nagito, mathematics teacher, Miss Tsukimi, Japanese teacher, and Mr. Kurosawa, science teacher." "I don't hear those names till now." "That's because they're substitute teachers." "Fresh meat," answered Nitsuko. "The actual teachers resigned after an insolent student coerced them into coughing up cash or face the risk of public lynching. It happened a few days ago." "Weak." I felt my lips twitch. "They were so aggravated, so infuriated," continued Nitsuko. "One of them even hurled a chair through the window, howling, 'You conniving little shits deserve to be put in Tartarus like the criminal scum you are.' And other curses to that effect." The blue-haired gremlin turned to look at me. She flashed me that devilish grin only she could make. Kids these days, I tell you. The lip twitches came back with a vengeance. I couldn't resist. PFF'd. Ha 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 ha. I grabbed onto my throne for stability as I laughed and laughed. What did I tell you? The sky's blue and some morons just don't get it without a good beating first. Ha 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 ha. Nitsuko didn't laugh along. She just nodded and smiled, waiting as I cackled madly. When my throat began to feel sore, I opened my drink and took a nice long gulp. I shivered when my tasted buds finally registered the sweet flavor of GB Peds melting in my mouth. FWAH, man, this shit hits the spot, I commented while looking at the bottle. Anyway, you know the drill. Spread the word. If anyone wants to show the new teachers some tough hospitality, they've got my blessings to do so. Let's give the new additions a big scare. My secretary hummed as she tapped her phone some more. No fatal victims, I presume. What? Nah. Hell no. I don't want no corpses in Deroku. How many times do I have to tell you? I said with a grumble. If the animals value their life, then they'll know not to take someone else's. Warn them just in case. She nodded resolutely. Her fingers kept dancing across the screen, perhaps typing down my indications. I wanna know our numbers for this year, I said after a bit. Are we still charging 10%? I sipped up my drink, feeling the fizzy liquid bubbling down my throat. My fingers played with the bottle, dangling it in circles as I sucked in a sharp breath. I rested one cheek on my open palm and pushed my thumb against my lips. Make it 17%, I said. No biz makes profits by keeping the same price forever. The grown-ups get pretty juicy salaries coming here so they can let go of a yen or two. It's not as if they have a choice anyway. The wonders of owning the monopoly of violence, admitted my secretary. Now, let's see. I could hear Nitsuko muttering numbers and names. It didn't take her long to come up with an answer. We should collect around 1.955 yen.000 per month, cash in hand, if everything goes smoothly. It never does, but the teachers don't fail to pay one way or another. Not bad at all. It was a nice sum considering we were just taking out a relatively small percentage from each individual salary. I could definitely keep things running with that money. Hell, I could probably buy that smart TV I've been eyeing for a while. Mine had cracks on the screen. I shouldn't have thrown that book at it. I like these numbers. I like 'em big and juicy. That's what she said. Course she did. Mom knows what she likes, I replied without missing a beat. How confident do you feel about the profits? The teachers won't be fooling us anytime soon, she assured. I've gotten hold of their paychecks, so I'll definitely notice if the gross result is not as expected. Nice, I praised as I took a sip of my drink. Nice indeedy. Those are the good numbers, though. We also need to sort out the bad numbers, namely, wages. Since we're charging more for our magnanimous services, I ain't paying higher wages, period. I cut her off. These idiots ain't researching the cure for cancer or anything important. Why should I give them more money than they know what to do with? They earn far too much for a teenager, if y'all ask me. I even loan them cash to buy food, goddammit. Nitsuko sighed in apparent relief at my response. Thanks for being the voice of reason, she said with an exasperated voice. I feared you'd find a weeny lil bit of empathy in your heart and let it cloud your judgment. This business is hard to run smoothly as it is to blow through our capital out of goodwill. I felt a grimace twisting my face at her commentary. Disrespect. What am I, motherfucking Teresa of Calcutta? This is my money we're talking about. It pisses me off that you'd even consider it. Well, it's not bad to ensure the boss bitch has her head on her shoulders. Some don't, and their bad decisions comes bite them in the bum later. Ah, speaking about bad decisions, there's another matter I'd like to bring to your attention. Serious stuff. I raised an eyebrow. Seeing that Nitsuko's expression didn't betray signs of fooling around, I leaned forward, close enough so that I could listen to this serious stuff in detail. What? She glanced around. After making sure nobody were too close to overhear, she leaned forward too. Drugs, she simply said. Shatter, to be specific. Someone's selling it to the students. Challenge. I heard a crack. I didn't need to look to know it was the bottle in my hand. Yeah, sure. As sure as blood is red, she replied. I've seen the product exchange hands here and there. Mostly between juniors. I believe that the actual supplier is amongst the seniors, however, but I haven't had the chance to spy on them and confirm my suspicions. They move in big groups. If they caught me, that'd definitely spell my end. Challenge. Insolence. That's bad. That's real bad, I muttered, restless. And the supervisors, they know. They haven't got a clue. Otherwise, we'd swarmed with police officers right now. I don't think they'll investigate any shady business as long as they never discover there's illicit substances involved. Keep it the classified, then. Restrict the flow of information, I ordered. If word gets out and the authorities stick their nose, we'll get a one-way ticket straight into Tartarus, for real this time. How long has this been going on? Nitsuko began toying with her phone. She spun it on her palm, a disinterested air to her face. I've discovered the deals 2 weeks ago. The drugs must have been going around for a bit longer than that, I believe. The students don't seem stupid enough to consume within school grounds, but at the rate things are devolving, we should expect a case of overdose sooner than later. It'll be hard to find an excuse when a student begins foaming at the mouth or beats another to death amidst a rage attack, though. Insolence. I groaned and slumped onto my throne. I tried to take another sip of my drink, sweeten the bitter thoughts and swallow them along with the liquid. A few drops trickled down my tongue and then I noticed I'd finished it already. Strike now. Strike first. Strike hard. Burn. 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 There was another crack. I sighed and bit my lip, thinking. Arson seems like a beautifully straightforward solution at times like this, I said through gritted teeth. No. No. Murder is a no-go. It'll just unearth the issues faster. Nitsuko chuckled a crooked noise. I wouldn't mind if you break the cardinal rule, boss. No fatal victims this, no fatal victims that, makes you wonder if that attitude won't turn us into fatal victims in the end. Besides, these are drug dealers. Real criminals. Will you just let them screw around unpunished? Red flashed across my vision. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Breathe I did and the red vanished. I stared down and saw Nitsuko wiggling uncomfortably as I pulled a handful of hair along with her head. Decapitate. Behead her. Finish her off. Not yet. Not yet. My breath hitched. I blinked and pulled Nitsuko closer. Listen to me, you little mental slut, I growled in a low voice. I told you not to tease me. Don't just drop a nuke like that and then question my decisions seconds later. If you really wanna see me rampage throughout the school, I'll remind you're close enough to be my first kill. And no, boss, I said I'd never dare, truly. It's just that, Goo, it's just that I fear you're being too soft. If the rebels aren't crushed swiftly, they'll just cause more and more problems and eventually ruin everything, the business, your reputation. These drug deals are proof things are getting out of hand again. I leaned back. I let the gnome go after considering for a couple of seconds. She rubbed the back of her head, murmuring a relieved, "Thank you." "Things are looking bad." "Yeah," I admitted. "But Killin will speed up the disaster and then I'll be the one to pay for the broken plates. We have to play it smart, play it cool. We'll crush the responsible ones in due time. I honestly wonder if they'll wait until we organize ourselves for an assault," added the gremlin with another sigh. "I'm of the opinion we should strike them down with fury, as soon as possible. This is the exact reason we had that unfortunate encounter in the hall." "Mike, the fuck you've been, man. We had a shogi match to settle, what the hell is that?" "Pants." Nitsuko and I perked up. We stared at the source of the voice that dared interrupt our conversation. Miguel had finally come back from his cunt-slaying quest. He strutted through the door, holding black pants in one of his hands. Miwa had noticed and called out to him, drawing attention to something that should have remained hidden. Miguel nearly spoke out of turn. He caught my stare and froze. I quickly put a finger over my lips and shook my head. Then I mouthed, "Later." He got the memo and winked at me with a smile. "The pants are for you, Mimi," responded Miguel with swift timing. "It's time you confess the truth." "Don't worry dude, I've gotcha covered. I know you ain't comfortable in a woman's body, us in skirt and all, but I've always got my bros' backs." "Fuck, that does it. Come here so I can fist you." "No way dude, das gay." The two idiots began running around the classroom. The others cheered and laughed at the ensuing scene. "Yes, there's also that," continued Nitsuko in a quieter tone. "You could explain the thought process behind that too." "Dunno. What's that? Babbling about. The inaction. The secrecy. Was it necessary to blue ball the guys when they were about to execute Kotoji? They were positively itching to relieve some stress. Not only you deny them that release, you also send Miguel to enact punishment afterwards. It would have been more efficient to go down that route from the start." "It could have, yeah, but it don't happen that way." I still wish to know why. I crossed my arms beneath my chest and huffed. "I can't have my employees lynch every jackass who rubs them off the wrong way," I explained. "It ain't the point of the business. We're supposed to prevent problems, not cause them. If they ain't botherin' the teachers then we don't bother either. One or two unfortunate accidents needn't be problems, boss. They could be examples, shows of power, warnings to those who want to step out of line. Think of it as daring marketing strategies. Insolence." I huffed and looked aside. "Fear don't last forever. It's better to spook 'em once and then keep 'em guessin'," I reasoned. "They'll turn fear into anger if we step on their necks every day. Plus, they'll think we're pussies who can't handle a bit o' banter. And you're not worried their egos will get inflated if we let them be." "It has happened already." Challenge. I felt one of my eyes twitch. I turned and gave Nitsuko a look. "My ego don't disintegrate like wet paper from one or two insults," I answered impatiently. But another red curtain crossed before me. It did not stay too long like the past times, but I could still hear my blood rushing, my heart thumping just beside my ear. Each beat reverberated accompanied by a word of defiance, a look of scorn, a show of disrespect. "The hallway is trashed. Heya, Miss Despot bitch. Drugs. Shatter. Someone's selling it to the students." But Nitsuko's voice wrenched me away from the infuriating images fed to my mind. Metal and sulfur mixed on my tongue as I licked my sharp teeth and the sharper fangs behind my lips, probing their edge, testing if they were appropriate to cut through flesh and shatter bones. Oxygen finally got permission to flow into my head. When it did, so did the answer appear, like a revelation, and it agitated me to envision it so clearly, so lucidly, as if the red that took over my sight were warm blood I'd just spilt. No, it was no mere revelation. It was a promise, a premonition. I wouldn't be neck-deep in trouble if could see the future, but that vision. That violent scene. I could see it happening anytime soon. I never forget an insult. Never. And when the time comes, all of them will regret the day they crossed me. My glorified secretary didn't meet my steadfast reply with a clever another. She shifted, silent. After a moment of consideration, she finally responded. That I believe, said Nitsuko sensibly. I suppose we just differ in terms of strategy, just a hair. I'm more of an immediate kind of person. I'm not as fond of these long-winded payoffs, these Machiavellian schemes, satisfying as they are when they come to fruition. I snorted. Drop the rational act, bitch. We both know you just wanna see blood. And like that, any sort of sober business attitudes melted away. A little laugh slipped from Nitsuko's lips. It felt somewhat surreal, seeing her changing so quickly as if her previous arguments or stances mattered so little she didn't care to defend them anymore. I just wish you didn't see through me so easily. It'd be fun to fool around a little more. I slapped a hand on my face. I grumbled, shaking my head. It ain't like you make an effort to hide her intentions, I responded half-heartedly. Anyway, the drug issue. You've got permission to use your quirk. I want this shit diffused and I want it diffused by yesterday. The gremlin perked up. I glanced at her and saw her face glow with emotion. She had an excited, almost playful expression, like a kid who'd been told she would get the toy she wanted right now. Really? Yeah, really. Dig deep and find who's the bastard that'll get crucified. It's a risky bet, but it's the next best thing after blowing up this school. Well, this is good news indeedy. I'm positively flattered I get to put my abilities to good use. With measure. With measure, I interrupted her. Mess with too many heads at once and someone will notice. It will happen, and then I'll have another problem in my hands. I trust her ass will be careful on that regard at least. Nitsuko chuckled as she closed her eyes. She sat on her spot like a prim proper lady, with hands on her thighs and the gentlest, most satisfied look on her face. If you've taught me something, it is to not put my hands too close to the fire if I can't handle the heat. I like playing with people, but I don't like it when they play with me. I'm a proud hypocrite like that. I stretched my arms above my head. I groaned as multiple crack reverberated throughout my body. Damn, that felt nice. Sitting for so long was making my ass go numb. That's the most sensible thing you've said all day, I replied after a moment. Anyway, I'm thirsty again. Hey, Miwa, get me another one of th. Fuck. Hey, someone's injured. I rose from my throne immediately. Nitsuko rose along, though she was more attentive to me than whatever had brought concern and alarm to my classroom. My employees were a bit slower to react but ultimately rushed to help soon enough. I scanned the room as quickly as I could. I sought the wounded who'd suddenly mobilized everyone with such worry, and eventually found them as soon as I laid eyes on the door leading outside. I saw blood and not much else as students gathered fast and blocked the view. I landed on the floor with a small hop and strutted towards the mass of people. Oi! Scram! If somebody's hurt they won't pass with y'all blocking the way. I spoke and people began to clear the path. Now, who the hell's making such a... My voice got caught in my throat. Daisuke and Yamada. The two guys Nitsuko had sent to deal with the juniors, the two guys that were under my care, beaten. Trashed. Ruined. Daisuke was a bloody mess. The guy had been dealt a lot of punishment and the dark-colored bruises on his face were proof of that. Blood streamed down his face, staining cut lips and broken teeth. A nauseating amount of the liquid seemed to get into his mouth and then out of it in gurgling gasps for precious air. But there was fire, resistance in his eyes no matter how broken, and I hoped he'd at least put up a fight against the ones who did this. I looked down. One of his arms had been broken and bent in an awkward angle, as if twisted like a wet shirt. He supported Yamada with his good arm and on his shoulders. And Yamada. He was worse for fear. Terribly so. His two legs had received the same treatment as Daisuke's arm, shattered and curled in ways that should have been humanly impossible. He seemed on the border of unconsciousness, eyes tiredly staring forward as if his mind couldn't register where he was or what had happened to him. Silence reigned for all about 3 seconds before Nitsuko intervened. Clear the desks now. We need to set Yamada down. And so they did. Silently so except for one or two ill-spoken orders thrown amidst frustration and hurry. The cards and food were swept away and Yamada was gently lowered on their place. I approached him. "It looks bad," commented Nitsuko as she took a better look at his incapacitated form. I think they might have broken his knees too. I can see fragments of bone pushing through his pants. Several heartbeats began beating fast in quick succession as my secretary assessed the situation. I clenched my teeth to snuff out the louder part of them, but they remained in the backdrop, an ominous manifesto of emotions and intentions. Challenge. I did a sharp turn. Then I looked up to Daisuke, who'd been seated on an empty chair. One student wiped his bloody face with a towel while other offered him water whenever he wasn't coughing out his guts. I walked up to him. Once I was close enough, I leaned just enough so that we were looking face to face. "Daisuke." He perked up and sighed. "Boss." "Yeah, it's me," I said slowly. "Talk to me, man. What happened? Who the fuck did this?" He blinked with effort. After taking a long, deep breath, he responded. "Juniors. First years," he answered with a wince, as if the sole act of talking hurt him. They attack us as soon as they saw us. They got Yamada first. I tried to protect him and, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, boss." Punishment. I closed my eyes. "I see. It's okay. I'm just glad you made it back," I said with a quiet voice. "Don't worry, dude. This won't stay like this." As I made to inch away from him, Daisuke's hand shot up to grab me. Attack. I saw him. I could have stepped away, but I didn't. I let him grab me by the arm even though his desperate touch set off every alarm in my head. "Be boss," he gasped. "Hayate. Their leader, that one's trouble. Big time." He used his quirk on Yamada, broke him with a wave of the hand. "You've got to." "Shish. That's enough, champ. You did well. Just let me handle things from here on. I'll make them pay." I took off his hand as gently as I could even though the voice urged me to break insolence. "Not yet, not yet." I stopped and stared at nothing in particular. I noticed the piercing stares, heard the raging heartbeats, felt the tension as if it were there trying to strangle the life out of me, trying to get a show of resistance out of me, a sign that something in all of this affected me, even if it was just a bit. An uncomfortable silence stretched out for a couple of seconds. Then, someone broke it, though not with a shout or a scream, but a softly breathed request. "Give the order, boss." I didn't know who said it. I didn't need to know. It might as well have been anybody and everybody in this room who gave two shits about a man on our side, a friend. They wanted vengeance. They wanted retribution. They wanted payback. Sweet, just, deserved payback. But their respect and fear were greater than their fury, and so they wanted to hear it from my mouth. Perhaps that was the reason they weren't fit to carry out this job. Beneath their anger lurked fear, weakness. They were more confident in their numbers than they were in themselves. Punishment, vengeance, disrespect, insolence, ignorance. Attack, assault, beat, destroy, maul, crush, break. It wasn't the strategically smart option. It wasn't necessary either. I could have waited and prepared something more elaborate, something that didn't bring unwanted attention upon me or the business I wanted to keep running as smoothly as possible. Attack, demolish, scream, shatter, smash, ravage. Honestly though, I didn't care. They hurt two of my employees. They spat on my authority. They threatened my business. They slighted me. I would not have it. Not anymore. Fuck it, I thought resolutely. This is the last straw. I want all y'all to shut the school gates. I don't want no one getting out of here, I ordered with a calm voice. I also need as many students as possible notified. There's gonna be a showdown in front of the school building. If people know what's best for 'em, they'll spectate. The mood changed immediately. My minions smiled to each other with excited expression, whispering light-hearted curses under their breath. They were itching to unleash violence and pain. They were itching to know when and how. Unfortunately, they were to be disappointed. I also need one of my spare uniforms prepared. This one's gonna get ruined. "Boss," muttered one of the students. I turned to stare at the crowd and smiled. "What, ain't it obvious?" I said, raising my voice. "I'm going alone. Your only job is to prepare the battlefield. That's all." I noticed most of the students readying themselves to protest my decision. They were a second short of doing so, but a quick glare settled them down. Now there wasn't excitement but indecision, and maybe worry, concern that I would share an even worse fate for my bravado. True, any other girl would have been beaten and beeped if she dared, in this kind of situation. It happened many times before. But they knew. I knew that they knew. They still feared me much more than they feared this new threat. They knew this would only go one way, and they were right. Nitsuko stepped up. She had an unsure look on her face, though it seemed more like curiosity than any kind of worry or fear. "That's so, boss?" asked she with an appeasing tone. I didn't answer right away. I rolled my shoulders instead. I felt them creak and rearrange themselves in place as soon as I let them. Something shifted, squirmed, crawled under my skin. I felt it slithering alongside my muscles, coiling around my bones, piercing through the joints in my body. It was a restless something, a dangerous something. Distantly, I heard metal scratching against metal. I looked down, at the cracked bottle I was still holding in my hand. I crushed it in my grip. Shards of glass fell to the floor and others embedded themselves deep into my palm. I gripped tighter, triturating the small bits into dust. I opened my hand. Fire danced on my hand. Bright blood and molten glass bubbled within the flame, slowly sinking into the open flesh, into the bones and veins and nerves. I breathed in. I breathed out. The air inside me came out with a beastly rumble. That same rumble, that growl, coated my next words as I spoke them. "I'm through playin' cool. They will pay," I enunciated. "And I'll make them regret the day they crossed me until the day they die." I wasn't a violent person. Kill them. I didn't consider myself a savage or, damn, irrational kind of girl, not at all. I carefully weighted my options before knocking some motherfucker's head off, and even then, nobody had to tell me it brought more problems than it was worth. Violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. I had read that piece of universal wisdom in Asimov's Foundation book. The phrase had been authored by a visionary yet humble statesman who saved his home planet from annihilation at the hands of a superior foe. And save his planet he did, with little conflict in the way. Kill them. Safe to say I absolutely agreed with this stance. There was nothing more unnecessary in this world than conflict. Those too stupid and short-sighted to find a solution would resort to violence because there simply was no other way in their minds. They were too incompetent to come up with a better choice, after all. Now, violence would only become the incompetent's way out after exhausting all apparent peaceful solutions. Without creativity, without inventiveness, without vision, it'd seem like the only recourse left was to whoop some ass and call it a day. Violence itself didn't make the incompetent. The incompetent were so and chose violence to make up for their lack of brains. They chose violence. Violence was a result of incompetence, not the cause of it. Fuck no. Anyone who believed the two were like pen and paper must have had water for brains. But did that mean there could valid reasons for violence? What about those who didn't choose? Who couldn't chose? What about those who were meant for violence and had to resort to it whether they liked it or not? It had been even stupider to call them incompetent. They were not. Violence itself didn't make the incompetent, after all. I didn't call the pest exterminator to dialogue with the fucking rats. I didn't pay a bouncer to kick back and relax while a fight broke out in front of a nightclub. I sure as hell wouldn't order a policeman to have a tea party with a thief, and I'd rather shoot myself before cheering for a hero who doesn't beat the crap out of villains. Kill them. Put it simply, violence was the essence of some people's jobs. So was mine. Crush, maul, mangle, obliterate, destroy, ruin. I wasn't a violent person. Honest. Kill them. I wasn't incompetent either. I didn't make money letting the animals run the zoo. I was a serious, committed entrepreneur seeking to make an honest living out of what I did best. I wouldn't settle with any less than the best of services I could provide, even if that meant unleashing hell on earth. So, as an extremely peaceful, competent person, and with all reluctance in this world, I'd massacre some problematic bitches by the end of the day. The alternative was losing face, losing money, just losing in general, and I'd rather taste dick than taste defeat. Should we proceed with the preparations, boss? Nitsuko's nearly disinterested question disturbed me out of my musings. Frustration spiked inside me at the unnecessary distraction. Reddish hues and violent images seeped into my vision and shook it out of place in a second. It took a bit of focus to keep walking straight down the hallway the next second, but I managed, clenching my teeth and fists to concentrate on something. I honestly wonder why you're even asking. Wasn't you the one saying we got to strike our enemies down with an iron fist? I said I'm gonna make them pay. That's cue to haul ass. See, the animals got the memo faster than ya. Can't see none of them, round 'cause they be busy doin' like I told them. Well, yes, you waste no time with ambiguities, she admitted calmly. I still believe striking them down with fury is the best course of action. I simply didn't expect it'd happen immediately, and I wanted to make sure you weren't letting the anger get the best of you. Disrespect. Short-sighted. It don't matter. I'll crush 'em and that'll be the end of that. Simple. It matters, boss. You of all people would know that knowledge is power, insisted the gremlin. We don't know the enemy's capabilities. We have no information on their quirks. We know not how they'll react, if they'll go for the kill quickly or play around. Disrespect. Pedantic. Unnecessary. I stopped. Nitsuko stopped along with me, giving me one of her analytical stares all the while. Daisuke has fought the rebels. He's still conscious. I can go back and ask him about Hayate's powers. He seems like a dangerous fellow, but you possess the upper hand in terms of data. If we delay the brawl for a couple of minutes, we can increase your chances exponentially. It don't matter. I punctuated each word with a growl. I glared at Nitsuko dead in the eye. Her words got caught in her throat, mouth open like fish out of the water, frozen in place as she processed what I said, processed that her opinions and strategies and plans meant squat to me. Her lips slowly pressed together in a thin, vaguely disenchanted line. It don't matter, I repeated. I'm done strategizing. Tactics and ploys are for the weak that need them. I ain't the best businessperson round, and that's why I tiptoe when it comes to money, but a fight. I stayed dead still during that second. I had the words stewing in my mind. A mistake. The restlessness hit me with a vengeance, like an itch, a need to stretch my body, but more so. Much more so. I'll never lose a fight, I said firmly. Anyone who crosses me will pay. Nitsuko thankfully didn't let me bask in my bubbling, vicious anticipation for violence. She shrugged and sighed, giving me one of those defeated grins she often shared. They will pay, she agreed lazily. At this point it's inevitable. Just remember to pull your punches. Or don't, actually. I quite enjoy seeing that other side of you. Whatever you say, psycho, I grumbled back. Make yourself a tiny bit useful and check me. Is it too obvious? The gremlin wordlessly marched in front of me and stopped. She inched closer to me as if to see something in detail. A look of approval flashed across her face and she leaned back. It's starting to get hotter in here. There's a bit of red here and there, too. Aside from that, your eyes are the only giveaway. They look like the sunset. Good. If I could keep it inside a while longer, it'd look natural. Just a while longer. Something squirmed inside me and it felt right. It was like the final piece of a puzzle clicking in place. Something dark, something unknown and terrible stirred under the milky skin and the soft girly curves. The itch became nearly unbearable and there was the urge to scratch the flesh off my bones. Not yet. Soon. My wristwatch beeped in the same second I resolved myself. I raised my hand to eye level. 192 beats per second and going up. Freedom. Yes, freedom. And it would be mine. I quickly unbound my wristwatch from my arm and tossed it to the silent Nitsuko in front. She caught it with a nonchalant move of the hand. Take care of it, I said. I don't want to replace too many of those by being reckless. Yes ma'am, dutifully said the gremlin with a grin. Now, go and oversee the operation. Make sure everything and everyone's put in place. Appearances be important. Nitsuko bowed with an excess of flair and a smile. Then she turned her back to me and disappeared into the hallways along with other students under my command scurrying about. A couple of silent seconds passed. My vision shook as I smacked my hand inside my mouth. I bit down, digging my teeth into the flesh, as deep as I could. Blood flowed over my tongue in short bursts as I pierced the few visible veins with my fangs. Then I bit down even harder, gnawing on the bones I managed to reach. Too restless. Too hot. All this tension is driving me insane. I couldn't let that tension go, though. Uncomfortable as it was to let the violent impulses stew within me, they were just right like that. Nitsuko had the right idea when she confirmed my intentions. The anger was getting the best of me, it was meant to. I could not let it go. If I went in all relaxed and lazy, they would break me. I had to accumulate that anger and let it fuel me like adrenaline as if the fight had already begun. The more I drove it back inside, the more it screamed for that sweet, sweet release. It had to get out. It wanted to. Freedom. It would. Not now, though, not now. Anger that dissipated as quickly as it came was not anger, just an outburst. I needed a sustained feeling. I needed a deep, blazing emotion. I needed a fire that burned and consumed all who opposed me until they were nothing more than ash. A flame that grew brighter and hotter as it devoured everything in its path. Only then there would be freedom, 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 freedom. All or nothing, I said in my mind. All or nothing. This wasn't a dumb school brawl. This was a deadly battle. They weren't mere bullies. They were enemies. They would fight to kill. If I underestimated them, they would beat me. If I gave them leeway, they would humiliate and violate me, too. But such stupid outcomes would never happen. After all, I had never lost fight. Never. I would remain undefeated after today. My knees would not bend today of all days. Not today and not for them. Never. Anyone who crosses me will pay twice over. A dizzying red took over my vision. I shut my eyes tight. I probed the walls with my free hand to avoid crashing and continued onwards, hyping myself up all the way. I found balance between the raging anger and rational thought after a couple of long minutes. When I did, I wrenched my eyes open again. The sight that greeted me was so unbelievably irritating I wished I were still battling the impulses instead. A man stood in the middle of the hallway. He was dressed in a formal getup, with black jackets, pants, white shirts and a tie as well. He also had this intimidating air to him, as if he were expecting a fight. It was something I'd expect from a secret agent or a bodyguard for someone important. He saw me from afar. I stared at him dead in the eye and he stared back with intensity, as soon as we registered each other's presence. He had sharp features and spiky black hair. From that distance, I could also make out the look of a disappointed parent on his face. At his feet lay a person. A student. As I inched closer, I finally realized it was Kotoji. The smug, smelly prick lay unconscious, with blood pooling just where his head was resting and arms visibly bent out of place. He'd been deprived of his pants, too, and I thanked Miguel in my mind for being such a good soldier. Hello, Ryazaki. The man's grave voice helped me focus on him. I looked at him and strutted closer. Hefo Kenshi, I greeted back with my hand inside my mouth. He clicked his tongue and looked aside. Nobody taught you not to speak with your mouth full. I don't understand. Savage. I growled. My hand left my mouth though some chunks of flesh remained behind, lodged between my fangs. Then, I spat some bloody saliva at the man's feet. The liquid sizzled on the floor for a few uncomfortable seconds before I finally addressed him. Hello, bitch boy. That clear enough for ya? Clear enough that you nearly seemed adorable while chewing your own bloody hand like a mutt. Yes, he said tersely. I'd ask you why you look like you're about to murder someone, but that's just a normal weekday, isn't it? Bingo, I replied while crossing my arms. Don't worry, I'm still adorable and cute on weekends when I ain't gotta see her bitch-ass face. Say, Kensai, where's that slut Hanasaki? She ditched ya to smoke weed somewhere else or what? Kensai mimicked me by crossing his arms. He stared down at me like I'd stare at a shitstain and breathed through his nose. Watch your mouth, girl. Supervisor Rain works twice as hard making sure you parasites don't hang each other, so I personally asked her to take a break. Anyone would get tired of dealing with sociopathic children every day. Rain, oh my fucking god. Calling that pothead by her first name now, I groaned with a mix of humor and indignation. Love yourself for a change, Kensai. I knew ya were pathetic, but I ain't take you for a goddamn simp. I said watch it, insisted Kensai, this time with annoyance in his voice. I won't stand idle while you badmouth me or a colleague of mine. Mom might buy that. Colleague, Bullshit, and I ain't that whore. Come on, man, literal millions of women in Japan and ya gotta hit it off with a walkin' chimney. Do yourself a favor and hire a hooker, cause that'd be healthier than whatever Hanasaki does in her free time. The wannabe terrorist is telling me to be healthy, he said in an audible whisper. I really hope you see the irony in all this. If I'm not laughing, it's only because I don't want people to think I have a good time here, talking with you. Mercenary, I corrected with a huff. I prefer the term mercenary, thank ya. I ain't deal with ya, colleague, or them bastard students of this school without expecting something in return. I'm of the opinion people should get handsome compensations for talking on risky jobs. Kensai closed his eyes. His bald hands fell at his sides and he said nothing in for a moment. He took a step towards me. Then another. Once he was close enough, he bent towards me a little, until his eyes were at the same height as mine. His expression changed little, even now. Kensai was still looking at me like I was a turd crawling out of the toilet bowl. But there was something sharp, something braver shifting within his gaze. I recognized that look. It was a frustrated look, a contained look. I knew about it too well. I'd seen it in the students of this school, in the faces of street thugs, in wildlife documentaries. I'd seen it on my own face whenever I looked in the mirror. There was hunger, aggression, a burning need to prove something. Challenge, yes, compensations, like that letter of recommendation personally issued by the principal, saying you were a good girl and a model student during your stay here. I'm sure the government would let you off the hook with a document like that. Free of criminal charges, you could even attend one of the top-level schools to finish your education. I narrowed my eyes at him. I uncrossed my arms, cracking the joints in my hands with subtle little movements. That's right. Glad to see her so well informed about her business partner and her end goals. What's it to you, bitch boy? Kensai dedicated me the fakest smile he could humanly manage. His stern face twisted horribly with the gesture and I realized this dude wasn't made for smiling. It's nothing to me. I normally wouldn't care about you or your intentions as long as they didn't put the school staff in harm's way, he explained, smile slowly melting into a frown. But we both know that's not the case. It was my turn to frown, then. The built-up anger bubbled within, reacting to Kensai's sharp commentaries as if he'd been taunting me, challenging me to a fight. I knew it was not the case, so I stayed silent and contained the volatile emotions. A few seconds passed and, in a flash of clarity, I finally understood what he was talking about. I closed my eyes in an attempt to focus. Bright crimson shifted behind my eyelids instead of the usual blackness and I felt dizzier. Something's got her panties in a bunch, I responded levelly. Dunno what it is and I don't really care either. Just lemme say this, whatever ya think ya know. It's bullshit. Bullshit. Right back at you, spat Kensai. Ryazaki, you're many things, all of them terrible and deserving of jail time, but you're not dumb by any stretch of the imagination. Do not play dumb now. It doesn't suit you after playing this school like a game of chess. Another crack ran through my body. Crack, 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 like the sounds of bones breaking, one at a time. And then there was a sharp scratch, a deafening noise, like metal brushing against metal. Or extracting money from it as if it were your own personal bank. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. My heart thumped against my chest, violently, as if it were the heavy steps of a beast inching towards me. I had to remind myself Kensai was not looking for a fight to avoid snapping at his neck. He wouldn't take that risk. It was a battle he would not win. Even then, a lone part of my mind had long concluded he'd thrown any caution to the wind, willing to throw down the gauntlet just to fuck me over in any way he could. Another enemy, another peasant itching to steal the crown from its king. No, nothing as glamorous, nothing with so many chances of going back alive. Just another piece of dead meat. Insolence. Challenge. Execute him. Finish him off. Not yet. The frustration made my eyes snap open. Kensai's face was suddenly a twisting image of red goo, or so my eyes were telling me. He flinched, backing away ever so slightly, no doubt seeing the changes in my body unfold before him. Spit it out, then. What did I do? My voice came out a few octaves deeper. There was a rough edge to it. A growl of sorts. He didn't answer immediately. He let my question hang in the air for a few seconds before straightening up, looking away. HMPH, now is not the time. The school is buzzing like a wasp nest someone kicked. We're going to discuss this later, with the principal, and in a calmer mood. I've arranged a meeting with him already. A smidge of the pressure dissipated. I allowed myself to breathe a little. The first thing my brain concocted after resuming normal functions was, of course, a taunt. "Ya don't want none of this, Mr. Supervisor," I said with sharp teeth in constant display. "Don't out after those grandiloquent jabs of yours. Ya got me all hot and bothered. Why ain't we do something about this sudden itch on my knuckles, huh?" Kensai refused to look at me. He adjusted his tie or, more accurately, loosened it a bit to allow himself an easier time breathing. Weakling. I'd rather not. As irritating as this job is, it pays well, and I wouldn't want to lose it for disciplining a cheeky brat. "Forget 'bout the job," I replied sharply. "You'll lose life if ya keep actin' like tough shit." The man in the suit scoffed and looked down, at the unconscious Kotoji. "Like this guy right here," Kensai continued. He kicked Kotoji lightly and forced a tired groan out of him. "Ah, never mind. He still lives. I take it this is handiwork of your dogs, then. And here I thought you kept them on a short leash. This ugly fuck started it. He was gettin' real cocky, so I shut him up," I explained before cutting Kensai off as he began voicing another useless comment. "And on the subject of misbehavin', a bunch of first years stepped out of line. They wrecked part of my territory and broke 2 of my guys." Kensai lost some of that aggression he'd been showing me. He turned, interested, a pensive look on his face. "A little declaration of war, I suppose," he said more to himself than me. "Nah, just some retards beefin' with the wrong person. And you're going to cause a bloodbath within school grounds just for some beefing." I nodded. "That's right. Call it disproportionate or whatever, but even in hell, Lucifer is king. Everybody knows not to fuck with the king. Such a precocious little devil you are. Sometimes I wonder how intelligent, astute people like you turn to evil so easily, but then I remember villains exist," Kensai said with a grimace. "Spare me the philosophical bull. I ain't see you bein' an ally of justice either. As I said, I'd lose my job for doing the right thing," he responded. "Anyway, any subject of interest among those you will punish. A prick named Hayate seems to be calling the shots within his own lil group." "Hayate, I see. Yes, I know him. He's been a thorn on my side for a few weeks, but nothing grave enough to merit discipline. Until today. It'll be the last day anyone hears a word of I growled resolutely. "So be a good supervisor and erase the evidence when I'm done. I've prepared the school for a public execution and I need no one interfering. You want me to erase the evidence even though it'll be a public fight? I think there's a little hole in your plan. There's a big fucking hole in your face and I'm Buddha shove my whole arm in there," I snapped. Then I breathed a little and lowered my voice. "I want to set an example for the freshmen. Students need to know the rules, so no more Hayates pop up later. Everyone's gotta see, but no one outside school should know. That means no recordings and no condemning reports. Capiche?" The suited man put a hand on the back of his head. He deflated with another sigh. Then he waved one lazy hand at me. "Consider it done." I smiled at him. "Glad to do business with ya," I said, the growl of my voice receding into an ugly purr. "Now get the hell out of my way before I destroy ya." Kensai turned to leave, a disinterested expression on his face. "Keep talking and you'll bite your tongue. And remember we have a meeting later, so don't give use more to talk about when the time comes, Having said his piece, he walked away. The man turned around the corner with a methodically slow pace and disappeared from view. I was finally alone. Alone. Only then, when there was nothing actively anchoring me to rationality, did everything hit me like a freight train. Kill, punishment, destroy. I heard a terrible sound like a faraway explosion. Or something immensely heavy impacting against the ground. It was sudden, deep, and soon enough, the only thing I could hear is a recurring echo. My everything shook in response to the noise. Maybe my heart stopped, too, in that seemingly eternal moment, but I could not really tell. Ravage. Eviscerate. Red took over my sight again. Colors melted into a viscous crimson. Dark blotches began growing in my view and mind, obstructing details and thoughts that were not essential. Crush. Annihilate. Maim. Thought was becoming muddled. Senses were overloaded. Priorities were set. Heartbeats, the smell of blood, the aggression, building up, piling up, preparing me for the coming battle. All or nothing, I murmured to center myself. I had to focus that anger. Just a bit more. My enemies, they were bastards, liars, cheaters. They were cruel. But I would be worse. Just a bit more and I would be worse. Not yet. I stumbled forwards. I needed to find them. I needed to crush them. I needed to defeat them. Quickly. I was about to explode. I felt a smile spread across my face as I found Hayate's hideout. Punishment. It was hard while only seeing red and black shapes. Fortunately, my employees were kind enough to provide directions before I set out, pointing me to the classroom where the problematic first years met. My head cleared up a bit as I stopped before the closed door. I looked up at a small sign where the class number was on display. 1B, here they are. Obliterate. My arm shot up to the door as I finished muttering. I grabbed it by the wrist, stopping it a few inches before it made a terrible mistake. My shoulders shook as I forcefully lowered my grasping, clawing hand, gritting my teeth all the while. The stage for the fight must have been set by now, and my minions were definitely waiting for me to bring the pigs to the slaughterhouse. This was the last step. I couldn't fuck it up here. I wouldn't lose to these idiots or to my own urges. Appearances were important. I fought the instinct to barge in with all guns blazing. This was a bloody battle as much as it was a dispute of influence. Wars were fought with brawn and won with smarts. I needed a methodical sequence of steps, something with cut and thrust in the mix. Fear. The crimson at the edge of my vision acquired a livelier tone as the plan became clear in my head. Yes, I said with a growling voice. Ha ha ha. They will pay, yes, soon. In an instant, I knew what I had to do. A bit of calculated chaos to set the mood. Something to scare them into compliance. Then I'd give them an offer they couldn't refuse. I felt my body relax. I took in another deep breath and approached the door. I smacked my face against it, rougher than I intended, and focused on the sounds. There were many voices behind. Young, cheeky, spirited voices. I couldn't make the exact words with my mind shrouded in a mist of bloodlust. I didn't need to. Anyone could make out a celebration from afar, and these guys were evidently happy about something. They joked and laughed and smoked as they recalled how they disrespected me and injured my enforcers without a second thought. Insolence. One word stayed when every other evaded me. Hayate. I heard it clearly, as if expecting that last piece of evidence to enact my plan. This was the place and the time. I stepped back and rolled my shoulders. Then, I balled a hand into a fist. Fire began igniting around my knuckles. The skin turned orange, bright orange, and then whitish orange as the fire burned even hotter. I waited. I waited until they finished laughing. Until they finished mocking me. Until they finished goading. I waited until one of those pricks passed close enough to the door. Eviscerate. Destroy. Kill. Not yet. It's not the time yet. Soon. I tensed up. Mama needs a new pair of shoes. And lurched forward, driving my flaming fist through the door. There was a muffled sound of surprise as I took a hold of the student's face. I didn't give him time to pull away, strengthening my grip on his face while willing the fire away. I quickly took a step back and pulled even harder. I smashed his face against the door. I did 1, 2, 3 times, and then another one for good measure. I did it again as my anger spiked out of control for a second, just a damn second when I could have ruined everything, but then I let him go and pulled my hand out. I skidded back. With a quick twirl, I delivered a powerful kick that smashed the broken door down, student and everything. I quickly dashed inside, inviting myself to an exhibition of confused, surprised, violent gazes. All eyes were on me and betrayed a primal urge to kill, even though nobody knew what was happening or what to think. They instinctually knew what to do even though they couldn't assess it logically. I didn't get the chance to have a look at the animals. My heightened sense of hearing alerted me of danger. I swayed back just in time as a fist coated with electricity grazed my chest. It crackled a dangerous tune, a threatening promise of hurt and pain. Small arcs of energy snapped at my face. I smiled as I felt it caressing my skin and eyes, a tingling sensation in their wake. "See king bitch," said my opponent. I couldn't hear him well, heartbeat thumping in my ear. I snapped at him out of instinct. His arm ended up in my grasp before he could follow up with a second strike. I dug my nails into him, positioning my hands in mirrored grips and holding him still. A crack followed as I easily twisted his elbow out of place. Far too easily. A scream began to emerge out of his mouth. I didn't allow him the luxury. I stepped into his close range as fast as I could and smashed my head against his face. Blood and tears splashed onto me in slow motion, my enemy falling limp and defeated to the ground as I struggled to stand mine. The strike echoed inside my skull, becoming deeper and deeper with each recurrence. "L or U?" I barely heard the new voice, distracted as I was by the sensations. Another eager to bite the dust came from behind. I noticed them just in time to duck. I watched and smiled as an arm with sharp blades sticking out of it passed over me, cutting strands of black and red hair. I turned around and delivered the heaviest punch I could manage in that position. My fist collided against this guy's balls. He instantly doubled over with a choked gasp. Vulnerable as he was, I took that opportunity to swing another fist to the side of his knee. There was a pleasant crack as I smacked his bones out of place. His entire leg buckled and twisted on itself without that important joint keeping it together. I didn't stop there. I prepared my elbow and smacked his other knee with it. It broke just like the other one. The student howled in pain and nearly fell on me. I dashed between his legs. With swift moves, I jumped up to my feet and took his arm in my hands. I spun it around, bringing the bladed end up to his neck, just as more students raced towards me to fight. "Stop, you fucking idiots." And stop they did. I also stopped. When I was sure I wouldn't be attacked, I began turning, slowly, showing them my hostage, threatening with a show of gore if they dared take another step forward. Moments passed. Nobody was brave or stupid enough to save their pal. Once I knew I had their attention, I scanned the room. I searched for the person who had given the order to stand by, specifically. I found him seated just in at the front of the classroom, with legs propped up the teacher's desk. He was well-groomed unlike the majority of students in the room. His straight, glossy hair was arranged in spiky ends, some of which covered one side of his face. His uniform was rather clean, too, with a black blazer over a blue shirt, dark pants and expensive-looking shoes. A couple of female students hanged around him. They distinctly gave me the impression of being his bitches, with heavy makeup on their faces and particularly short skirts. They cowered behind the student, caressing him and searching for his protection as they stared at me fearfully. The guy didn't cower like them. He seemed disinterested and exasperated, even, lazily glancing at me with dull blue eyes. "Listen, everyone, I will ask a question and you must answer honestly," said he, his voice an uncaring drawl. "Are you mentally retarded? Do any of you suffer from impaired judgment or some brain-deteriorating pathology?" None of the students, his goons, apparently, responded. He groaned. "Come on, don't be shy. We're all messed up in the head in some way or another. I just want to know if your case is grave and if it's contagious." He kicked one leg over the other. "I mean, geez, depending on your answer we may be facing the beginning of a mass suicide epidemic here. Just think about it. Who in their right mind throws hands with a psychotic bitch who literally barged in, ruined 3 guys in less than 10 seconds, and looks ready for more? You must either be old school suicidal or just plain retarded. I wouldn't dare." At that point, he craned his neck and set his eyes on me. Seemingly finished admonishing the students, he finally addressed me. "And who might you be, girlie? You have both my interest and attention without speaking a single word. Let's see if you can keep them. I'd hate to turn you into a porcupine, after the little show you put up." I lowered my hostage a bit to get a better look at him. He smirked, tiredness flashing across his face. And please let go of poor Shinji. He's already passed out after all the pain you dished out to him, he reasoned. You clearly don't need protection, but I give you my word that nobody will attack you, provided you don't do the same. I understood people. Attack this girl without permission and I'll shove your teeth up your brain. There were mumbled sounds of agreement throughout the room. It vaguely reminded me of myself delivering orders and irritated me something fierce he dared put himself at my level. No matter. I took advantage of that authority and spoke. You must be Hayate, I said with a breathy voice, agitated. The one and only, he responded diligently. Would you care to introduce yourself now? I'd like to discover who just, fucked up my classroom and 3 students. I shifted a bit and then threw my hostage to the ground. Before anyone could do or say anything, I pointed at the guy whose arm I'd broken. That one was for Daisuke. I pointed at the broken-legged student, then. And that one was for Yamada. Hayate stared at me for a few seconds. Recognition flashed across his eyes and he laughed aloud. More seconds passed before he pointed a finger at the broken classroom door with the student beneath. What was that one for? I crossed my arms and flashed him my teeth. Because you pissed me the fuck off. My words sent him into a bigger laughing fit. I waited for him to stop having a good time. Some of his minions were laughing along, though I figured they didn't really understand why. Oh man, this is rich, gasped Hayate, still giggling like a little bitch. Forgive me for changing the subject, all things considered, but, wow, I must say that's one cute face you've got there. Care to give it a name or should I settle with, baby doll? I brushed a couple of strands from my face. Tension bubbled within my core, a mix of anticipation and rejoicing at Hayate's words. I ignored the conflicting feelings and continued. An eye for an eye. 2 of my enforcers came here and ya got 'em good. I broke 2 of her paper soldiers in return. Now we're even Steven. Hayate huffed as he threw his hands in the air. I didn't ask the reason you came, baby doll, said he while chuckling some more. But yeah, I figured you wanted payback of some kind. Those guys mentioned something about a boss. I imagine you're her, given your choice of words. Yeah, a fellow leader, observed Hayate, putting his feet down and setting his elbows on the desk instead. I'm glad to meet someone else at the top of the food chain. I must say, I wasn't expecting you to come face me all by yourself. Absolutely respect the hands-on attitude you've got going on, though. Violence brings results and nothing results in respect more than violence. Impertinent. I swallowed the urge to laugh. Then I hugged myself, digging my nails into my arms to distract myself from the impulses. I stared at him and waited. He stared back for a few seconds. After he understood I wouldn't talk, he waved a lazy hand, pursing his lips. So, you got revenge, he said. Anything else you'd like to discuss? In any other situation, I'd just twist your head out of place for blasting in as you did, but, I like the cut of your gif. If you go away, I won't stop you. We can even establish a cooperative relation down the road. What do you think? I hugged myself even tighter. I turned to the door without answering. Then I gestured at him with my head. Follow me. We goin' outside. Another laugh followed in a briefer moment. I heard Hayate tap his desk. Forgive me for, my reactions, he said while trying to contain his giggles. Not used to being ordered around so liberally. Is this another way of asking me out on a date or? Gut him. Really enjoy the sound of her own voice, punk. I growled out. I told ya we're even Steven. Now, I want to discuss business. Not here. Outside. Bring 1 or 2 or whichever number of bitches with you if ya wanna feel safer. Ain't gonna change a thing anyway. At that moment, I picked up Hayate's heartbeat speed up. Not out of nervousness, no. There was also a clenching of fists and grinding of teeth. His tapping of the desk continued seconds later. He responded after taking a couple of indiscreet breaths. Confident much, I'd say, he mumbled. Oh well, I guess I could follow, with one condition. Having said that, Hayate lifted his hand towards me. The guy didn't even wait for me to ask him about this condition. I'd like you to crawl your way outside, since you insist, said he with a hint of laughter to his voice. I do wonder how you'd look with a collar on. My everything then twitched. The twitches quickly transformed into shivering. I shivered, shook like a leaf in the wind as my arms uncrossed involuntarily. They trembled, and so did my legs, which kept me standing straight by sheer force of will. I felt myself shivering, inching heavily towards the ground, as if a massive weight had been dropped on my head. Telekinesis. Some sort of energy control. No, otherwise I'd feel it. Something more direct. Something tangible. Nervous system. Muscles. Blood. Was he controlling any of those? Most probably. I couldn't move the way I wanted. Something within my body was working against my will. A metallic scratching reverberated from deep within. I had my answer, then. Bones, huh, I said to myself. So that's how ya broke my guys so easily. Hayate shifted in his chair so quickly I didn't even need to train my ears. His heartbeat sped up again. I felt myself grinning like a maniac. The shivers intensified. Now I felt as my elbows and knees were slowly forced to bend unnaturally. I groaned once the discomfort caught up to me as I fought against the invisible force Hayate was applying on me. The more I struggled, the more he insisted on breaking me. But he couldn't. Nobody would. I twitched my way into a standing position in spite of the invisible force. I turned my head to look at Hayate. I stared at him. He stared back, eyes wide, a look of bewilderment on his face. I imagined nobody had ever beaten the influence of his quirk before so easily. Well, I couldn't blame him, not when my bones were far sturdier than a grown man's already. Counterattack. Strike back. Kill. It's last chance, boyo, I told him with a sigh. Follow me or die on the spot. The ultimatum seemed to snap him out of his stupor. Hayate slowly lowered his hand. The twitching and shivering disappeared and I was left with a perfectly moving body. His shock didn't last much. Another smile transformed his face in record time. He adjusted his blazer a bit and signaled at me with a hand. I have to say, you're positively full of surprises, Hayate commented. Fine then, my boys and I will come along. Lead the way. He stood up from his seat. A small group of students followed behind him right as he approached me. I stared them down and scoffed before exiting the room. The walk outside ended immediately. Or so my mind understood. There were flashes, violent lapses in my memory, useless things forgotten. I was struggling to walk straight and remain rational already. I caught one or two underhanded comments from the people behind me. I probably brushed them off unconsciously. I couldn't risk a confrontation. Not yet. Ravage. Maim. I was beyond rational thought, now. I was gunpowder and a little spark would set me off. There was no coming back. I savored the sounds of insults and heartbeats. I drank in the intensity. The mindless indignation. The desire to let loose. It all pumped me up. I quickened my pace to meet the challenge head on. We stepped out. The fresh wind of a sunny spring afternoon caressed my face. It prickled my skin, just like pouring cold water on a fresh burn. I glanced around. The battlefield was prepared per my orders. No meddling third parties in sight. No unnecessary ruckus happening. No way out. And many watching eyes attentively eyeing this little scene. I saw scores of spectators peeking from the windows of the building. I stopped. I turned. Hayate and his goons stopped too. We were right in front of the school, in an open field. Here, nobody would miss out one detail. Hayate marched forward as if declaring his status, his fearlessness. He stuffed both hands inside his pockets and raised his eyebrows. Here we are. Let's cut to the chase so we can go back to our lives. What can I do for you, boss? He said so cockily, as if I was a capricious little girl wasting his time. Again, it reminded me of a disappointed parent dealing with me out of goodwill or responsibility and hating every second of it. Insolence, arrogance, ignorance. A long exhalation left my mouth. My breath was hot, visibly distorting the air in front of me. Strong tingles ran over my body as if all of my nerves were being tickled one by one from the inside. My feet and hands twitched restlessly. The bones of my ribcage rattled from the sheer strength of my heartbeat, giving my voice a soft rumble to it. I took a mouthful of air and spoke. Listen up, you Warhoudles pieces of shit. My yell reverberated throughout the place. All feebler sounds present dissolved into the backdrop, making way for my voice in the sepulchral silence that followed. It wasn't something I said to Hayate specifically. Everyone, every single person within school grounds, they knew extremely well that I was alluding to them, even if couldn't see them all. All eyes were on me. I glared at my opponents, taking in the sight of every single one of them. Hayate stared with a placid look like he wasn't bothered. I spoke when his attention was fully on me and the most uncomfortable silence had passed. Good afternoon and welcome, I greeted with an exaggerated bow. Welcome to the Deroku Correctional Institute, ya bunch of wasted sperm cells. I ain't pleased at all to make your fucking acquaintance. I know you ain't either. Let's make this quick and clean before someone draws blood. I pointed a thumb at myself then. Name's Hikari Ryazaki. Might as well call me Mommy, 'cause I'll be just that to you fuckers in this miserable place. I observed their reactions. There weren't many, except from the occasional speeding up of heartbeats, or a couple of insults spat in a low voice. Hayate stared at me with hands in his pockets. He seemed unfazed. I figured he was interested enough not to interrupt, which is why I continued. Now, open her ears and shut her assholes. I ain't like repeating myself, came out my harsh statement. I know why you're all here. Some of y'all are horrible bastards who can't live amongst normal people. Others were cursed with a horrendous quirk that screws any chances of fitting in society. A few of you must be hated by their parents. Chances are that you check all the boxes to be a social pariah, too. Y'all ain't sent to Deroku by being a fucking cherub. My point is, I don't fucking care. I said pointedly, I don't fucking care why you're here. I don't need to know, 'cause I know enough. I know we're all little bitches who think they're the baddest motherfucker in town. I know you think you can act like animals in here, to let out the frustrations you accumulate in whatever hellhole you crawled out of. But I've got some news for you. I took a couple of seconds to breathe. Then I stopped as a growl rumbled from within my throat, betraying my urge for violence. I managed to relax, just enough to pretend I hadn't let out a demonic noise. Nothin'. You barely qualify as fucking bacteria for being alive. And you better remain as nothin', 'cause the alternative is being an annoyance. A problem. I spread my arms and shrugged my shoulders as I said that. Problems get solved quickly in Deroku, ya see, I clarified with a little laugh. I'd know. I'm the problem solver round these parts o' town, and I'm extremely efficient at what I do. My breath hitched then. Something was building up. As I spoke, it became harder to fake the effect it was having on me. Heat. Overwhelming heat, like 100 people's worth of a fever. But it didn't feel uncomfortable nor painful. It did make me feel restless. Every time I moved, every time I articulated words, every time my body shifted another inch as I gesticulated at the people in front, every motion aroused that dangerous thing beneath my skin. My core released pulses of heat throughout my body, as if distributing the temperature so I wouldn't die of a stroke. A vague sense of ecstasy lingered in the back of my mind. It took no small amount of willpower to control my facial muscles, to avoid drooling or smiling. Standing here on the edge of a fight, a part of me wanted to burst forth. I contained it. I was slightly better than these animals. Just a bit. Just a tiny bit, and then I would be much worse. Freedom. I recovered my mental bearings. Time had slowed to a crawl during that moment of temptation, so I resumed my speech with no issue. Now, there ain't no need to cause problems. And I really want to stress that part, I said through gritted teeth. Y'all ain't got absolutely no reason to cause a disaster of any kind. At least within school. Got an issue? Then go fucking solve it somewhere where there ain't rules. We do have rules in Deroku, I kid you not. The rumble to my voice had already turned into a low growl I couldn't hide. My whole torso was shaking, like an unstable card house about to fall. Although the students didn't notice the abnormality as it was, they were affected. I could see their faces twisting in discomfort. Between my warnings and the physical changes, few seemed willing to speak out. One didn't care, even now. Hayate waved his hand lazily while looking aside, as if wondering. I see what you mean, Miss Ryazaki, he said disinterestedly. Isn't it a bit hypocritical coming from you though? I'm sure this show you set up isn't exactly in line with the school rules. And besides, didn't you injure 3 innocent students back in the building? They were attacked unprovoked and many eyewitnesses here would agree you were the aggressor. Any attack you claim we enacted upon your people, it lacks solid evidence. I spat on the ground. My saliva sizzled on the dirt as it burned. Then, I stared at Hayate and raised a fist so he could see it. This is evidence and I'll show ya how solid it is by shoving it through your butthole, I countered crudely. But yeah, you'd be right in any other circumstance, except you misunderstood one part, bozo. I probably did. I don't speak crazy bitch, unfortunately. I smiled at his comeback. You'll be fluent by the end of the day, I assure you, I continued with a cackle. The part you misunderstood, the one about the rules. I ain't talking about the rules of the school. I brought one hand to my face. I stroked my chin with it, partially hiding my widening grin and the teeth-like blades behind. I'm alpha bitch here, and I'm the one who makes the fucking rules. That's the gist of it. I trained my eyes on Hayate, on his goons behind him, and on the school itself. Maybe, I was hoping I could set them all on fire if I stared intensely enough. I'll give it to you mongoloids straight. And you better learn my rules like a good Christian learns the commandments, I said resolutely. There are no second chances here. Deroku is your second chance. You waste it. Don't expect compassion later. I closed my eyes. Right then, I could listen to my loud heartbeat inside, thumping, sending vibrations into my skull. Don't fight. Don't threaten nor injure the teachers. Don't threaten nor injure the supervisors. Don't interrupt classes. Don't use your quirk. Sleep during class if you like. Skip school if you fucking want to. Smoke, eat, fuck all you like, I don't care. Just don't do it where it bothers others. And last but not least, keep your goddamn problems to yourself. If you can't do that much then I'll consider you my problem. And my problems never last very long. I purposefully allowed a few seconds of silence so they could digest their new guidelines. Then I sighed. In summary, you can do whatever you want as long as you're not being cancer to others, I added. I'd say, this should be easy for you, but I know it ain't. So consider this your one and only warning. My eyes darted from one part of the crowd to another. I did so knowing my eyes had long transformed into a twisted version of themselves. Knowing that they couldn't hold my stare for too long without feeling the urge to run. Any questions? While I stared, I tried to get a read of their emotions. I sought unease, anxiety, fury, frustration, doubt, compliance. I found everything except compliance. The one who didn't meet my most hopeful expectations was Hayate. Yet again, it was all a silly game to him, his shit-eating grin the most evident proof of it. Soon enough he was audibly laughing. His friends took it as a sign to laugh too, a coping mechanism to dispel the fear I'd placed in their heads. Ha 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 ha. Sorry, Ryazaki, did I say you were full of surprises? Said Hayate as he whipped a tear of laughter. I meant to say you're a walking surprise. Every word that comes out of your mouth is an absolute riot. The group laughter increased in volume. I stayed where I was, impassive, taking in the noise and its distorted reverb as my ears processed it. Those noises died down as quickly as they were born. Provoking commentaries followed them suit immediately. Jokes aside, Miss Ryazaki, I've had this doubt ever since we met, said Hayate while gesturing at the people around him to quiet down. Who the hell made you king of the mountain? Which right do you have aside from your self-attributed one to rule over any of us, A student came around Hayate and patted him on the shoulder. Ain't nobody got time for this, chief. This bitch is crazy, I tell ya. Nothing good will come out of listening to her. For all her crazy bitch talk, she ain't looking half bad though. Not half bad, another student interceded with a cackle. Looks like a total slut to me. Just look at them giant tits, man, they be screamin' for release. Girls gasping for air like she's in heat, yahahaha. My subsequent growl, nobody heard in the ensuing show of laughs. The changes I'd been holding back, the changes they'd noticed and which made them cower in fear of what was to come, the new butt of their jokes. I didn't respond. It was unnecessary. I knew lies were efficient in soothing the cowardly mind. Besides, unbeknownst to them, their words contributed to my plan. I wouldn't deny the gracious fuel my victims were offering. Fuel that would burn them at a stake soon. A stake of their own making, built upon illusions and arrogance. Man, with so much shit going on I really didn't notice, she is a slut. Said another fool, maybe we should fuck her up, teach her not to chew more than she can swallow. The opposite dude, the opposite. Bitch could use those pretty lips to suck dicks instead of talking bullshit. Ha ha ha, hey, when you're right, girl's desperate for someone to plug those holes of hers. Wouldn't be running off her mouth otherwise. That's an attention whore if I've ever seen one. The insults overlapped one over another as the seconds passed. They found comfort in their numbers, their hostility. The students laughed louder, insulted me further, lost more and more control. They felt courageous in front of me, one lone girl with a loose tongue and seemingly defenseless. It seems it's decided, Ryazaki simply stated with a clap of his hands. Do forgive us if what comes next seems gruesome. I'm sure you understand. After all, it is not the rules of this school that matter, but the rules we ourselves make with our own strength. Isn't that what you implied? Then he took one step forward. And another. The students that not so long ago seemed unwilling to defy me marched along him. They bared renewed boldness, aggression, a constant challenge shone through their bearing and the nerve in their step. Nothing I said would now convince them that I was on top. Deluded as they were, they wouldn't listen anymore. I confronted them by also stepping forward. I smiled as my eyes rolled back. Then, yes, finally, it's time. My voice had grown far deeper than that of a teenage girl's. A woman's voice, more like, intertwined with something graver, darker, clawing its way through my vocal cords and flesh. Itching to consume and slaughter. Incredible warmth pooled within my chest and belly, a liquid sensation as if it were molten iron coursing through my veins and not blood. Every joint inside my body creaked and shook as if someone forcibly pulled them out of place. My muscles tensed up. They were bulking up, growing larger, meatier, stronger. A sharp feeling of pins and needles washed over my whole body. It came from the inside, from under the fragile layers of skin, like hundreds of tiny hot knives piercing their way through the surface. Then, crack, from deep inside, my skeleton had crumbled under the pressure. A skeleton that glued itself back together as soon as it was broken, glued back sturdier to withstand what was to come. Marks ran through my skin as if it were scrapped paint. Another crack shook my head, and then, my jaw seemingly dislocated itself out of its hinges. I let it hang, baring my even sharper fangs in a wicked smile. Ha ha ha, finally, flames erupted from the depths of my mouth. The sound of my voice shook my entire body ever so slightly. I jumped. The people in front finally snapped and attacked me. Then, there was steel and fire, and the smell of charred meat. To be continued. I hope you enjoyed this story. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.